Hello and welcome to WGTC Radio, the official podcast of entertainment website We Got This Covered. I'm Jonathan Lack.
And I'm Sean Chapman.
And we are here without a theme song this week because my iTunes is frozen and won't respond. And Sean's iTunes
is just, it's dying every single time I try to use it, and it's been dying for like a couple of weeks now.
So, alright, we use iTunes in the recording of this podcast sometimes because we like to play music for you.
Yeah.
Because it can help auditory aids.
Yeah, and sometimes, sometimes it just feels weird to just start a podcast off talking like we just did now.
Yeah. And you know what else we like to use iTunes for? Is it's sometimes nice to listen to music.
Yeah,
sometimes,
in our lives. I think we both really enjoy it, like our genres of music, and we both like to listen to music a lot.
Yeah, and iTunes in theory, it's nice because if you use a computer where iTunes is on it, your music's there, and you can click on it and play it.
Yeah, and
in theory.
Yeah, it's it integrates with your iPhone or any other Apple devices you might own very easily. So yeah, it should be a wonderful program, and it used to be.
And then they did iTunes 11.
Yeah, they did.
Fucking piece of shit. The topic of this episode will not be how much we hate iTunes 11. It will be Evil Dead. We'll be talking the new film by Fede Alvarez, produced by Sam Raimi, remake. It's really great. We're going to talk all about it.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about some other fun newsy things. We're going to talk the latest episode of Doctor Who. But I don't know. We have to get this off our chest.
Yeah.
iTunes 11 is a flaming pile of horse shit. Sean, your problem is the biggest.
Yeah, mine is really weird because mine only started happening, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, and it keeps on happening, but it's completely unpredictable. Where one time I restarted my computer, I used Windows and everything. There was a Windows update. I updated my computer. Came back up, I started iTunes, and then I noticed that I have a significant quantity of music that I've obtained, like through CDs, that I did not buy. Most of my music I don't buy through iTunes.
Right.
And so, so I have to import that music into iTunes, and usually that's really easy to do, but I've accumulated huge amounts of music over, my past years. And it's all over the fucking place on my hard drive, and it's just like, it would take me hours to try to consolidate it into a nice, concise place, but, so anyways, I booted up iTunes, and I noticed that all that music that is not my music that I purchased through iTunes wasn't showing up in the list anymore. So I was like, well, that's really fucking weird. It was also treating it like this was the first time I ever booted up iTunes. Like, it was treating it like it was a fresh install, which is also really fucking weird. And so then I was like, well, that sucks, but maybe there was a weird update thing, whatever. I'll just try to fix it, and it took me 30 minutes. I imported everything into iTunes. It was really fucking annoying because the first time I just went to my folder that just contains all music that I have and just said import. For whatever reason, it imported 2 of every single file, so I was like, well, that didn't work. So then I had to go into each individual folder for all the different artists, and so AC/DC, and import all my AC/DC music. That was the only way I could get it to work. I have no idea why the fuck that is. So then that happened, and then the next day, I eventually stopped listening to music, exited out of iTunes. The next day I started up iTunes again, did the exact same fucking thing. So I was like, well, this is bullshit. And I kept on sort of exiting out of iTunes without importing music to see if is this going to keep on doing this? Because I'd import a song and then keep on clicking out of iTunes to see if it would do it. And it didn't do it again. So I was like, okay, well, maybe now it's fixed. I don't know what the fuck's wrong. Did all of that again. Took me probably another 30 minutes just to get all the music in there, get it reorganized and how I had it, how I liked it before. Then it's it was fine for 4 days. Then it happened again. Really pissed me off. That time I uninstalled and reinstalled iTunes to try to get it to fix. I thought that fixed it, but then last night, again, it's I had it all fucking, it was perfect, and then I exited out of iTunes, loaded iTunes up, everything was gone. And I was also signed out of iTunes, so everything was gone until I went and signed into iTunes. And so then it was okay, here's all the music you bought on iTunes, but it didn't read that I had those files on my computer. I could only play them by streaming them because they have the iTunes cloud service now. So it was I had to import the songs I bought from iTunes in my iTunes music folder into iTunes. So I'm just not going to use iTunes anymore because this is most of my music I don't need to use iTunes for. So I was fuck it, I'm going to use Windows Media Player now because it's all in there anyways. But yeah, iTunes really fucking pissing me off lately.
Yeah, since I got it, because iTunes used to be my favorite program because I love music. I have music or something going all the time while I'm doing other stuff on my computer. Yeah. So iTunes used to be on my MacBook Pro. I always had it open, and it was really easy because it was really clear layout. You got your artist view. You could go to albums view. I used to use artist view exclusively. Really easy. You go through. It's got the nice images. You click on your artist. Your music's there. It's all displays easily. It always moved fast for me. It was never slow. It was really easy to use, easy to import stuff, export stuff, whatever. A good program. Then the new version came out, and everyone was clamoring like, "Oh, it's been so long since we got a new iTunes." And to me, I was like, "This to me seems like an iTunes update that we're doing just because we haven't done an update in a while."
Yeah.
And so they completely redesigned iTunes, and since then, and Sean can attest to this, because every time we go to record the podcast, he sees, my iTunes freezes no matter what I do.
Yeah, it's constant, and it's actually really hilarious.
I mean on functions as simple as, and Sean, tell me if you can think of a simpler function than this, scrolling. Scrolling through my music will freeze iTunes.
Yeah.
Clicking on an album to open it will freeze iTunes. You just did it for a second. Let's see. Switching from albums to artists tab will switch iTunes, or will freeze iTunes. Playing a song will freeze iTunes. And the best part, now usually it will freeze and then it'll come back, and I just have to go do something else for a couple minutes. So that sucks, but whatever, I've learned to live with that.
Yeah.
The worst thing is now, by every song you play, there's a little button with an arrow pointing right. Now that button is the button that shows your up next thing, which is a feature I cannot use because if I click on that button, it hard freezes iTunes and I just know it will never come back because I've timed it. I've walked away from my computer, come back 2 hours later, it's still frozen. I have to force quit it. And luckily on a Mac, force quit works very well. But, I have to do that all the time. And so the only way I can get iTunes to work reasonably well is to have it open no matter what. I never close it, but I have to close it a lot.
Yeah.
And then opening it up, it's usually an hour or so before I can really use my music, fluidly.
Yeah, and I have always had that problem since the update of, mine doesn't freeze all the time, but mine is super slow every time I have to boot it up.
And, I really can only use the Albums and Artists tab, and even here, I'm switching to Artists, it's slow.
And a good 10 seconds to switch.
I can really only use those 2 tabs. I use the Albums tab because I think it looks nice. And I'm used to having the album art there, which for some reason now Artists is just a list, and then I don't really like how Artists is laid out as much anymore. But if I go into any of these other ones, like songs, genres, videos, radio, that'll freeze it all. And it's super annoying now how it does some stuff with movies and TV shows, where... Yeah, it's just there's some things about it. It implemented a lot of stuff that I was excited to see. Its podcast tab is much better now, and it syncs with your podcast. It's easier to see your podcasts, but it freezes a lot, and it shows all your cloud purchases are much more easily integrated.
Yeah.
I like all of that, and I even like some of the I like the albums tab where you click on an album and it just fans out like this. I think a lot of these are good ideas. But ideas don't quite matter if you can't use them.
Yeah. It's at the end of the day, that's all kind of nice. But if at the end of the day, I don't give a shit that it's kind of nice because I just want to play the fucking music.
Yeah.
All that window dressing, sure. But if it's not playing the music, or if it forgets what songs it should be able to play, I don't even know how it does that, but it keeps on doing that, then it's a completely worthless program to me.
I know, and I would walk away from iTunes, but I have an iPhone and an iPad and an Apple TV. I'm in Apple's, ecosystem, and I like it. It's just, and iTunes works great on my, on my Apple TV, it's easy to play music. Same on the iPhone and iPad, works great on all of those devices. It's just on the computer now, and I also feel I need it because I use their iTunes Match service, which is super useful because then I can easily get my library of music onto my iPhone and iPad. Yeah. It's stored. I don't have to worry about losing it. I like all of that, and then also I share an iTunes account with my brother, and then he can have all the music. Anything he rips, I see on mine. It's super useful in that regard. It's just the interface is so clunky on here, and anytime it goes to update Match, which it does automatically at random intervals that you do not have any control over, it will freeze for about half an hour.
Yeah.
And then it'll unfreeze when it's done, but I cannot use the program while it's doing that.
Yeah, it's... I don't know. And actually, one of the other funny things with iTunes was the last time I actually bought an album on iTunes. I bought the soundtrack to Street Fighter 4 because I realized I had no Street Fighter music, but I loved all the Street Fighter main character themes. So I was like, I really love the Street Fighter 4 version of the themes. I'll just buy the soundtrack. It took a day to download it because every time a song finished downloading, the program would hitch up, basically die every single time. So I would have to constantly just exit out and come back in every time I downloaded 5 or 6 songs because the program would just completely freeze. So, yeah. I don't know what happened to iTunes, but it's dead to me now.
It's getting there for me, and I just... Yeah, I thought about Amazon has a player now where they basically have the match service and you can use it on all your devices and stuff. Might have to move over to that.
Yeah.
But there's lots of options, but it's just, yeah, iTunes not working great for me right now. So that's why we had no theme song this week.
Yes.
Because
and so to replace the theme song, we had a 10-minute rant about iTunes.
Yes. So, fuck you, iTunes. Anyone from Apple listening to this, please fix it. It plays music. It can't be that hard. It's not...
Yeah, it should be like one of the most simple programs to make at this point. Like, there are a lot of other options, and iTunes used to be one of the nicer ones.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it is anymore.
No. Anyway, that's that.
Yeah.
What were we going to talk about on this episode, Sean?
I don't fucking know.
All right. To recap, our main topic this week will be... We started out mad, but we have a lot of things we like to talk about. So we're going to talk about Evil Dead. Really good.
Yeah.
Talk about this week's Doctor Who. I didn't much like this week's Doctor Who, but we like Doctor Who in general.
Yeah.
And let's see, we've got some other interesting news things. But we're going to start. Sean recently played through the entire Uncharted trilogy.
Yeah.
Would you like to share some quick thoughts on that?
Sure. Like, this has actually been one of the fun things that now you brought the PS3 up here, that it's nice that I can play all these PS3 games that I have missed, and I can also play them all because they're really fucking cheap now. Because, Uncharted 1 came out in 2007, so all these games are pretty old, and you can get them really cheap on Amazon. And Sony also is doing this cool things where, over the past, 2 years or so, they've been collecting, a bunch of their, trilogies and, series of games for the PS3 into, dual packs or triple packs where you can get all of them sort of consolidated. So I got the Uncharted 1 and 2 dual pack, which is only, $20 on Amazon, and I got Uncharted 3, which is only, $18 on Amazon, so very easily able to play all three of those games. And there's some of the, sort of like the watershed, games for the PS3 that when everybody talks about it, it seems like everybody's favorite game on the PS3 was Uncharted 2, and maybe it's still Uncharted 2/Uncharted 3. So I decided to start playing them, sort of get into it. And I have to say, before I get into it anymore, that they are really good games, and I certainly would recommend them because everyone else fucking loves Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3. So, chances are most people are going to love it, but I specifically had some problems with it where, Uncharted 1, you can completely fucking skip. It is a really, really clunky game. They didn't know quite how to implement, mix the third-person combat and their platforming elements, and it's not that interesting of a story either. The best parts of all the games are the writing is really funny, and the performances are really great from the voice actors, notably Nolan North as Nathan Drake. Obviously, he's a great voice actor. That's sort of his biggest role that sort of made him known in video gaming. And then also the graphics are fucking amazing, and the art direction is really great. So then, Uncharted 1, fucking skip it, or watch the cutscenes on YouTube because the cutscenes are awesome. And then Uncharted 2, Uncharted 2 was the one I was really excited to start playing. I wanted to play Uncharted 1 to sort of have the perspective and see what that was about. And so then but I was excited to get into Uncharted 2 because everybody fucking loves it. If you go back and Metacritic and read the reviews, it's got a 96 out of 100 on Metacritic. It's just got it's kind of like Bioshock Infinite now. It's just got lists of 10s. And it's well, holy shit, the people fucking love this game. I started playing it, and it's a really good game, but I still think I think all the Uncharted games should have just been movies, I guess, at the end of the day, is how I feel about them, where the gameplay part of it was never that interesting to me. The third-person shooting, cover-based combat always felt kind of awkward. It was never as good as anything like Gears of War or Max Payne 3, and so, I wasn't necessarily expecting it to be quite that good, but most of what you do in the game is shooting dudes, and when shooting dudes is not that much fun, there's kind of no point to it. And the other, the gameplay aspect of it is mostly these, sort of platforming puzzles, I guess, but the way you platform is really specific in that there's only ever one way you can get out of an area by climbing, and only one object in each tier to climb up out. It's everything is basically a ladder. You just have to figure out which direction you have to go in to climb up. It's not like Assassin's Creed where you can climb on fucking anything that looks like something you can climb on, which makes really bizarre instances in Uncharted where I can be in an environment trying to figure out where's the point where I need to start climbing, and I can trace out multiple paths where it seems like I should be able to climb up this way to get out of there, but that's not the way the designers thought you should be able to do this area, and no, I have to go to this specific handhold, and then go up that way, and then jump on this rope and swing over there, and it's I could have just climbed up that thing and then jumped on that banister and been on the fucking roof I needed to get to in 2 seconds, but since the designers didn't want to design it that way, it didn't work out that way. So that's sort of with the Uncharted games, like their big thing is that they have a lot of really huge set pieces that are really cool, and a lot of them are really cool. Like there's like in particular, Uncharted 2 has a sort of very like all of these are very Indiana Jones inspired games. Like if you really like the Indiana Jones movies, fucking play these games because it's basically Indiana Jones the game. But there's like this one sequence in Uncharted 2 where you're on a bunch of trucks and you basically have to jump from truck to truck, beating up dudes. And, like, every time you jump off a truck, like, the one you were just on explodes and shit like that. And those parts are really fun, but there's only, like, 3 or 4 of them in a game. So, like, the Uncharted games, I have, like, the really mixed feelings about them, because I did enjoy them, but, like, I didn't enjoy them anywhere near as much as, like, the sort of critical acclaim, like, the reviewers seem to have. And so it's like, every time I feel like I talk about them, I feel like I need to bring up all the negative points about them, because nobody else seems to. Like, the gameplay to those games just feels so shallow and just, like, really, like, you know, people throw around the term linear all the time. Uncharted is a linear game. Like, if you do not play that game the way the designers intended you to, you're fucked. Like, you have to, you know, it's almost kind of like playing a Call of Duty. Like, if you're not, you know, don't try to run ahead of your dudes in Call of Duty. Like, that's because that's not the way the designers designed it to be. You'll get lost. It's like, just follow the guys in Call of Duty, follow the arrows, that's how you play Call of Duty. Uncharted is just like, just do what the game's trying to tell you to do. And even sometimes you get fucked. Like, this is the best, here, I don't want to go in too much further than this, but this is my impressions on Uncharted. This is like what, everything that's wrong about Uncharted boiled down into, like, 2 moments that actually made me have to stop playing Uncharted 3 for, like, an hour, because it just pissed me off so much. In Uncharted 3, they're in this one section where you go to, I forget what, so you go to some city. It's after you're in, like, the huge sequence that everybody knows about where you're in a burning building. After that level, you then go to another city. Then in that city, there's this part where you have to get to a tower. And to get to the tower, it's basically, you know, a lot of sequences in Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3 start off as sort of like stealth missions, but aren't really stealth missions. Like, you don't fail if you get caught, but you can take out a few dudes and be sort of sneaky at the beginning. And then it's like, and then usually shit goes down. But in that specific sequence, they're like, let's try to get to that tower and let's try to get to it quietly. Like, that's almost exactly the line that one character tells you. So I'm like, okay, I actually kind of like being stealthy in these games. This is kind of the most fun part of the combat. So I was sneaking around, trying to get there. I traced a path, just killing people along the way, and got all the way up to the base of the tower, to the door, and standing there and being like, there's nothing I can do. Why is nothing, like, I can't hit a button prompt? Like, usually I'd be able to walk up to the door, press the triangle button, and, like, trigger a cutscene. It's like, what the fuck's going on? I snuck up to the tower, and then I turned around and I realized, oh, there's still, like, 3 dudes down there who are alive in different areas that I just snuck past because I was not taking that pathway. You can't get to open that door and trigger the cutscene unless you've killed everybody in the area, because that cutscene that happens would make no sense if there are enemies over there. And then also new enemies spawn in over there if you don't trigger after you trigger the cutscene. So it's like, what the fuck was the point of telling me to sneak around? Because now I got completely fucked because there was no easy way to get out of the area I was in to get to those guys. So I had to, like, jump down from where I was, and then I got caught. And then as soon as I jumped down, another bad habit that Uncharted has is that it will just spawn dudes, like, basically on top of you if you're not in, like, the farther area of, like, if you're not in, like, the piece of cover that you first get introduced to in a combat zone, they're going to spawn dudes on top of you because they expect you to be in that first piece of cover. And it's like, just sit in that first piece of cover every single combat situation and just pop dudes from as far away as you can, because that's the most efficient way to play Uncharted. If you don't, they'll just drop bullet sponge enemies on top of you and you'll get fucked. And that's what happened to me in that situation. So then I was like, okay, fine. I'll just go in guns blazing, kill everybody. I did that. Super easy. Got to the tower, because don't bother with sneaking, because they clearly didn't really want you to sneak, they just told you to. So that really pissed me off, because it was like, I felt really good about sneaking all the way to that tower without getting discovered. And I was like, no, fuck me in the ass because I decided to do that. Then I get to the tower, trigger some cutscenes, then it's like, probably like 15 minutes later, I get to this area where there's like, you're at where you need to be now. It's like there's like this secret door. You know there's a secret door here, but you're at a wall where there were like 3 pillars, a pillar on the far left, pillar on the far right, pillar in the middle. The pillar on the far left has like all these images, like one is like a white triangle pointing up. The pillar on the far right has an image that's like a black triangle pointing down. The pillar on the middle combines those 2 images overlapping each other. And one of the characters says, in like, you know, Arabic tradition or something, or Arabic symbology, it's like the gateway is between 2 pillars. And it's like, but which two pillars? And I'm sitting there thinking, like, it's the fucking press the middle pillar, assholes. It's like, what? It's fucking, that's the one that combines all the symbology of the furthest edge, pillars. Like, natural human instinct would say, hit the middle pillar. Like, that's where the gateway is. If you know there's a secret door here, fucking, it's the middle pillar. But nobody's able to figure that out. Because what you need to do is you have to go around to the edge, then it triggers a cutscene where, like, a bunch of people are like, how do we, what is this? Where's the secret door? What do we do? And you, like, walk around the corner, and then it triggers a cutscene where everyone else is now around this corner, but one dude isn't, and, like, the bad guy sneaks up on him and, like, drugs him, because that's part of the next story sequence. And then you figure out, after that happens, you figure out in the cutscene, you press the middle pillar. Because look, that's a white triangle, and that's a black triangle, and this one has both of them overlapped on each other. Maybe we should press the middle pillar. And I was like, oh yeah, you think so? Fucking genius Nathan Drake. Like, you people should have been able to figure this out in 2 fucking seconds. And after that happened, I was like, I'd have to turn this game off, because it was such a contrived way to force this cutscene to happen, to force that character moment, that I was like, you guys could have found a better way to do this. And that was like, sort of, like, those 2 moments, like, boiled down what I feel is wrong with the Uncharted series, and, like, what was really frustrating to me about those games. But everybody else fucking loves them, so apparently I'm crazy. But
is the story just that good, do you think? Are there really good stories in writing?
Like, I think they're really fun. But I think one of my problems with it is that, like, it's something like, but while I do really like Bioshock Infinite's gameplay, if Bioshock Infinite's combat had not been, like, phenomenal, I still would have been fine with the game, because the story in Bioshock Infinite was super interesting. That's kind of the case with Bioshock 1, where the story was really interesting, but the combat was pretty lackluster, but I really enjoyed the game because the story was that interesting. Uncharted has a really good story in the sense that it has really good characters and is really fun and really good performances, in the same way that's with the Indiana Jones movies. But the Indiana Jones movies and Uncharted don't have these really intricate, like, really, like, deep plots that you're like, what is going to happen next? You're not like, you're not on the edge of your seat in that sense. You're on the edge of the seat. It's like, what is the next action beat going to be? Like, this movie's really fun. This movie's really cool. But you're not, like, analyzing, like, deep character development or something like that. And so, in a movie, that works totally fine because the action in the movie can carry it through. And in a game, the action is the gameplay, and for me, the action of Uncharted didn't, like, carry that element through. So while I did enjoy the cutscenes, because the cutscenes are fucking great, because you can just sit and, like, I can just watch, like, 5 minutes out of a really awesome Indiana Jones ripoff now. It's like, yeah, that's awesome, but it's definitely not enough to me that I would feel like it's able to carry the game in any way. So, yeah, because it's like, it's almost like, Uncharted, the story in Uncharted has no more ambition than, like, the story in Gears of War. While the story in Uncharted is much better and much better presented and, like, much better acted and much better written, it has no more ambition than something like Gears of War, where they're both just sort of, like, dumb action stories.
Right.
And so, but with Gears of War, the gameplay, like, those games are all about the gameplay, and the gameplay totally carries it through because that's everything they focused on, whereas Uncharted, that's definitely not the case.
Okay.
So that's how I feel about the games. But again, I would still recommend them to anybody to play because obviously most people really fucking love them, and I think it's probably mostly a taste thing of that I don't like this really hyper-linear style of gameplay. And I also don't, while I do really like the Indiana Jones movies, I don't absolutely love them the way a lot of people like, the way I know you do.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, like, not exactly my thing. So it's like, I know, like, I should have known going into Uncharted I probably wouldn't have loved it as much as most people did, but I was kind of surprised by how much it let me down.
2 questions.
Okay.
1, you played the whole trilogy. What was your favorite game in the trilogy?
Uncharted 3, by far. Because, 1, it was the most refined in gameplay sense. The combat was a lot more fun there. There's some, like, and the big set-piece moments are way cooler in Uncharted 3, where there's, like I said, there's the burning down building section that's, like, in all the trailers. I think everybody's seen, even if you don't know, you've seen it. That part's really fucking amazing. There's the best part in all of Uncharted 3 is, like, there's this middle section where you're on a sinking boat. That is fucking awesome, because it's basically like you're playing the Titanic if the Titanic was an Indiana Jones movie. It is so fucking cool. Like, that's the whole best part of the whole series to me, is that. And then also, in the Uncharted 3, feels like it takes a lot of inspiration from The Last Crusade, which is my favorite Indiana Jones movie. Like, while Nathan's dad never pops up, they deal with, like, Nathan's father figure, and they deal with like there's a whole sequence where you're Nathan as a kid and sort of like find out how he became who he was.
To the snakes.
There's like a large sequence where you're attacking a convoy and you're on a horse with another Arabic dude who's also on a horse. Like it takes a lot of beats from Last Crusade that I really appreciated.
I could dig that. Yeah. All right, second question.
Okay.
Hollywood has been trying to develop an Uncharted movie for years, which seems like a natural thing to do given that these games are cinematic. Now, they have had Mark Wahlberg attached to star. now that you have played these games and seen Nolan North's performance, does it make sense that Marky Mark would be Nathan Drake?
God, no. Like, and while I say that the Uncharted movies the Uncharted games should have been movies, that does not mean that I then think they should make Uncharted movies, because that doesn't make any goddamn sense either, because, like, they're already games. Like, honestly, and I think this has happened, I haven't looked it up, I heard about, I think somebody edited together basically all the Uncharted games into if they were movies, using the cinematics and, like, taking some of the gameplay. So it's like if I'm not sure if that actually exists, I might just be, like, I don't know, misremembering something I read once, but if that does exist, that's how you should experience, like, Uncharted 1, at the very least. It's like, because those cutscenes are really awesome, and they're, like, really well-directed. Like, it's really surprising when you see them, just how cinematic they are, especially because the graphics have such a great fidelity to them, but they're also so vibrant and interesting, not like, Call of Duty's not a great example anymore, but like, Call of Duty's going for something really realistic, but it's also really dull. Whereas Uncharted is like, it's realistic, but it's got a lot of color, it's got a lot of character to it, and it's like, so it's like those cutscenes are really fucking awesome. But yeah, like I can't imagine like the character of Nathan Drake other than Nolan North, like, voicing him.
And why wouldn't you just have him play him in live action? Because he looks like the dude.
Yeah, that is true. I think Nolan North might be a little bit too old, like, because Nathan Drake's probably, like, in his 20s. But...
And make an Uncharted movie where he's older. Like,
sure.
Or
just don't make an Uncharted, like, this is the dumb thing, it's like, you don't need to make a fucking Uncharted movie, just, like, make another Indiana Jones-type movie. Like, we don't get a lot of those, like, sort of just high-adventure, like, movies anymore.
And it comes back to every video game movie, which is, my question is, if every person who bought an Uncharted game went and saw that movie would be a flop.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fan base is it's not Harry Potter, You're not going to get hundreds of millions of dollars from it. But anyway, I will play 2 and 3 sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
And maybe we can do... And I'll play the Vita one, too, because I have that for free through PlayStation Plus.
Sure, I have that one also, so...
Yeah, Golden Abyss, and... I would have fun with that, because
I completely forgot that existed. I should check that out.
Yeah. So anyway, that's Sean's mini review of the Uncharted series. Maybe we'll do a fuller podcast later on, I know we'll definitely be doing a little more with video games of the past generation over the rest of this year. Yeah. Because we'll want to do some retrospective things like that.
Yeah,
and maybe that'll be part of it.
It'll be nice when, like, because I'm going to definitely... keep on trying to, like, get some of these older PS3 games, like the Killzone games, the God of War games and stuff. So, like... I'm definitely going to keep on doing my rabbit hole down the PS3, because I realized before I got Uncharted, like, one of the main motivations for getting Uncharted was I realized if I don't play these games now, I never will, because after the PS4 comes out, I will probably never go back to the PS3 games, because the PS4 is not going to be backwards compatible. So I was like, I need to play all these games, like, over the course of this summer, or else I'm never going to end up playing them. So,
right.
Yeah.
So, all right. That's Uncharted. Let's see. What else do we want to talk about? Let's go off on video games.
Okay.
So, speaking of video gaming, we've talked a lot on this podcast about the next generation consoles. We did a whole sort of Desires predictions episode a couple months ago before the PS4 announcement happened. Yeah. We covered the PS4 announcement in detail, and we've talked about some other things. But I feel like this is a good time to revisit, because it's a slow week, the Xbox 360. There have been a lot of rumors lately, because we still don't know when Microsoft is going to announce this thing.
Yeah.
We don't. They have not put out any official news or anything, and because of that, the rumors are just piling up and piling up and piling up. And the main one is that the Xbox will be always online.
Yeah.
And this has been compounded by a Twitter fiasco, which we will cover in like 10 seconds here.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Give us the spiel.
Okay, so here we go. So basically, this was like a week ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. There's a guy, I think his title was creative director at Microsoft. He's since resigned or been fired. I'm not sure if it's clear which one it is. But he had some tweets. And this is the part of, like, this whole story that I want to make sure is fucking clear, because this is something that's been really misreported on, is that he was not at all like having a private Twitter or having a Twitter conversation with like consumers or like fans or anything like that. He was having a should have been a private conversation with his friend. Like, the biggest mistake this guy, Adam Orth, made was that he really underestimated the power of the internet and, like, that sort of level of exposure, especially when he has that position at Microsoft. But he had this conversation with a friend he had at BioWare on Twitter where he made some really dumb comments that might have been meant as sarcastic but didn't necessarily read that way, of basically, you know, all the, like, I don't know what the big deal is with the console being always online, like, I want everything to be online, I'm always online anyway, and stuff to that effect, and, like, they had a little bit of an argument back and forth. I think it basically ended with the BioWare guy saying, it's like, oh, you don't live in, like, I forget what he's like. He says like a couple
West Virginia.
Yeah, West Virginia or something like that. And it's like, then Adam North is like, why would I want to live there? So it's like, you see, it's like kind of an asshole thing to say, but you can see if you're saying it to a friend, you're just giving your friend shit.
Like Sean and I do on this podcast all the time.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like, I'll make fun of you going to Iowa. I don't have any problem with Iowa. I just like making fun of you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like shit like that. Like, I'm not, like, trying to say Iowa is a terrible place or something. Like, I'm sure he's not trying to actually say West Virginia is a piece of shit place or something like that. He's just having fun with his friend. But that got blown up because, again, he's the creative director at Microsoft, was creative director at Microsoft, and fucking everybody reported on it, and saying it's like, oh, it's like, they basically, you know, I'm sure the guy got, like, death threats. It was, like, the whole, like, 9 yards with how, like, the internet gets carried away with shit like this.
Because journalists online, and particularly video game journalists, are kind of terrible journalists.
Yeah, it really, like, because I was looking up stories about it before it came down here to, like, try to refresh my memory, because it's been a while since it happened. I was just, like, really shocked at how many sites did not point out the fact of who he was actually, like, almost every single site was basically implying he was saying this to a normal, like, random person on Twitter. Like, you know, that you'll sometimes see celebrity, you know, like Ricky Gervais all the time will respond to someone who, like, gives them a dumb tweet or something.
As he calls them.
Yeah, it's like, they acted like this was that. It's like, no, he was fucking, this dude's his friend. And like, the context is really important, but obviously, once it got out of there, nobody, like, gives a shit about the actual context. It, like, became a total shitstorm. Dude lost his job. Probably didn't really deserve to lose his job, but he was kind of an idiot for not thinking about the consequences of what that sort of action would be.
Especially when Microsoft is trying to keep things on the down low.
Yeah. But it's definitely, like, the lesson to take away from this is, if you are a position of authority in any sort of public company, particularly a technological company, don't underestimate the power of social media. Don't be an idiot on social media. Don't post random shit on Facebook or Twitter. Those are not your Facebook or Twitter accounts. Those are the company's accounts. Because like, Microsoft's not going to give a shit if you have a conversation with your friend. As soon as that gets out there, your head's on the line.
Yeah.
So
that is the elephant in the room with this, because that's all anyone wants to talk about, it seems like. The bigger issue we're talking about, we don't care about that. I think it's too bad the guy lost his job over something like that. He made a mistake, but people make mistakes.
Yeah.
But, you know, we just said that's the lesson you learn. But what we want to talk about here is that, while it has in no way been confirmed by Microsoft, there are enough rumors now that I think it is worth discussing the possibility of an always online Xbox.
Because I think we might have addressed it a little bit in our, like, what we are expecting, but I had kind of, at that time, more or less disregarded, like, that had been thrown around as a theory, but I was like, I kind of disregarded that because it seemed really dumb. But this is definitely the most prominent rumor that keeps on coming up, and that Twitter thing was, like, sort of the cherry on top of, like...
And the sources are coming from increasingly sort of reliable places.
Yeah.
And places that have been accurate in the past. So, what we want to talk about here is just basic question. Sean, do you want an Xbox that is required to be online all the time to have even basic functionality?
Jonathan, did SimCity have a good launch?
SimCity? What? Tell me more about it, Sean!
Well, you know, I think I was just reading a story a couple of days ago about how SimCity finally has cheetah speed, like the fast speed mode, in all of its servers now. Like, a couple of months after its launch. So... yeah.
SimCity, if you do not remember, a game required to be always online, basically just for DRM purposes.
Yeah. No way, like, it has definitely, like, totally come out. It's completely public now that there's nothing about the design of that game that means it needs to be online, even though they claim that was the case. It's not the case at all.
No, just for DRM, digital rights management, and had one of the most horrendous launches in video game history.
Yeah.
Probably the worst of the modern era.
Yeah, especially because because it didn't need to. Like, right. Especially because if it was something like an MMO, people would have given it slack. But since it's called SimCity, there's no slack there. Like, the fact that you put this dumb always online thing means that everybody's got their eyes on you, and boy, did they fuck that up.
Yeah, nobody could play it basically for the first couple weeks. It's only just now getting better. It's a fiasco. And so, Sean, does that partially play into your opinion of an always online Xbox?
I mean, yeah, it definitely. Like, I would have this opinion no matter what, but it definitely, with like the SimCity and before that Diablo 3, where Diablo 3 had very similar issues of game that does not at all need to be online, obviously, because Diablo 1 and 2 were not, and Diablo 3 is not that different, and it also didn't have like a disastrous launch, but nobody could play it on the first day it came out, and then like nobody likes it all that much, because a lot of people, like myself, want to play Diablo single player. And so it's, same thing with SimCity. Most people want to play SimCity single player, and this is really fucking dumb. And the thing with always online, and the thing about always online is it's totally fine if it's something that actually needs it. If it's an MMO, yes, of course, it's always online. If you're playing multiplayer in Halo, it has to be always online. Like, that is literally what it has to be. Like, the reason why this is such a hot-button topic is because there's no reason why you should always have to be connected to the internet to be able to play a game on your Xbox. Because if it's, BioShock Infinite, you should be able to play that game completely offline. It takes nothing from online. Like, there's no multiplayer, nothing. You should just be able to put the disc in and play it. And right now, that is a situation you are in, is if you own the fucking game, you can just play it. Doesn't matter about your internet connectivity. The only time you should have to play a game online is when you literally have to. Not because they put some dumb arbitrary restriction on it.
And even you're talking about with Halo 4 or any Halo game. Here's the thing: your internet goes out. You can then go play campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
You can play. You can grab a friend and be like, "Hey, come sit on the couch. Let's play a custom game together."
Yeah.
The point. The thing is, we do not live in an era where internet is perfect. We are so far from getting to that point. And, internet is spotty. And it is spotty even where, we live in a pretty good area of the country for internet. We're in Boulder, Colorado, and we also live in Golden, Colorado. That's where our parents are. And in both of those areas, internet is spotty.
Yeah.
And those are not areas where the internet is horrible by any means, but it can be spotty. And if it goes out, you should not be able to not use your property that you own because your internet is out.
Yeah, for some just, arbitrary reason.
Yeah.
It's, and even if we do live in some world that's, where the internet, almost never goes out. Like, it is as perfect as you could possibly imagine it being within, actual physical possibility. Even then, if the fucking program you're running takes nothing from being connected to the internet, there's no reason you need to be connected to the internet to use it. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
If you're not using the internet to use the product, they're completely separate. And then trying to put this weird umbrella on a system or device that says, you can only use it if it's connected to the internet, even though you don't really. If you fucking busted into this thing and, change that, flip that switch, you'd be able to use it just fine. But,
so I will put it, I have not given my full opinion here yet, so I will just say, I will not buy the next Xbox if this is true. And
that's definitely the case for me as well. I've gotten back into Halo multiplayer, but most of the time, I don't take advantage of the internet when I'm playing video games. A lot of times I'll be offline, or I'll appear offline just because I don't necessarily want people to send me messages and game invites and stuff if I'm playing a single-player game, because I want to get myself immersed in the experience.
Yeah.
So, it's a dumb thing, and the dumbest thing about it is that it's possible, especially because, Diablo 3 needed always online connectivity. SimCity needed always online connectivity, even though those two products didn't necessarily need it. Diablo 3 was made by Activision Blizzard, and SimCity was made by EA. So I can definitely see Microsoft being seeing the things that Activision and EA saw in that. I could definitely see that Microsoft being this is a good idea, because both those companies thought it, and those are the two biggest publishers in the entire industry.
Yeah.
So that's the scariest thing about the whole thing, is that it is totally plausible, and I see it's totally plausible now after the SimCity stuff. It's still definitely not confirmed. It is still definitely a rumor, and I don't think anybody should be just assume that Microsoft is doing this, because it is a fucking dumb thing to do.
Well, and we haven't done this with a system yet. That's a much bigger...
Yeah.
I think there's things like the Google Chromebook where all its processing is done remotely online, and so you have to be connected to the internet for that. But other than that, I don't think there are products that you just buy that, Apple TV is one because it's a streaming box, things like that. Yeah. That's a very different function. Mm-hmm. Just having a system where you can put stuff in it. I assume the next Xbox will have an optical drive. Let's say you want to watch a DVD or Blu-ray, you would have to be connected to the internet. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. If like that, there it is. It's like if the next Xbox has an optical drive, but it still demands an internet connection at all times, I'm not going to buy it. It's like if it doesn't have an optical drive, and it's like you only can download games, and it's like, or it's a streaming box or something fucking crazy like that. That offer's still on the table because I'd have to see what the fuck they're doing with it. But yeah, if it's something that's just obviously there just to restrict consumers, if it's something that's obviously just DRM to try to fight retail stores, try to fight used games, try to fight piracy, if it's something like that, fuck you, because I don't buy used games. I almost never use retail stores anymore, and fucking I don't pirate video games because this is an industry I'm really invested in. I really love video games, so I'm not going to try to hurt the industry that way. And if you're going to try to punish everybody because of the actions of a few, go fuck yourself. I'm going to go get a PS4.
That's my thought exactly, and it's just stupid. It's just, I don't know. It's very basic property issues at this point, which is that I want to own the stuff I pay for, and I don't like the video game industry moving in this direction where that's growing into not being the case, and that's stupid.
Yeah, I mean it's. I feel like I've been saying this a lot, but it's it's something we're going to have to we really are going to have to figure out now. It's like, how does the law apply to internet, like particularly like property laws and shit like that?
Yeah.
How did copyright laws apply to the internet now?
Right.
The internet's such a different thing that our legal system has not really caught up with. Like most of the people in fucking Congress have no goddamn clue how the internet works. Yeah. Eventually, we're going to have to figure this shit out, and hopefully,
it's honestly why I still prefer. One of the reasons why I vastly prefer physical media for movies is that I don't like buying movies, or I'm okay with TV shows sometimes because I don't watch them over and over again. But with movies, I never buy those online because that service could go down. So other things could happen, but in any case, I don't own it. I own basically a license for it, and that's dumb. If I own, I go out and buy The Hobbit on Blu-ray, I have it, and I can use that as long as I have a Blu-ray player.
Yeah, that was one of the primary reasons I never bought music on iTunes, is I didn't like the restrictions on how I wanted to use that music I bought. Yeah. So, yeah.
It's tough. It's going to have to be figured out. I'll just say this Xbox rumor troubles me, and honestly, there are a lot of Xbox rumors out there. I'm sure most of them are false. It's a different case within the PS4, though, where some of those PS4 rumors were true, and those tended to be ones that I thought sounded cool. I really haven't liked any Xbox rumors I've heard so far, and I just want to hear... I just think Microsoft needs to come out and fucking announce this thing, because they're getting nothing but bad press right now on this. And they haven't even announced it yet. And Sony did...
they haven't even announced, the announcement, At least, Sony, a month out from the actual event was like, hey, guys, we're going to do something.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
And it shut a lot of people up.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but it shut a lot of people up. And it got them good press. And then they had a good showing. They said what they wanted to say, and they've had pretty much good press with the PS4 ever since. And they never got into this bad cycle where, because no one knew anything, it's all rumors and speculation, and that just makes people uncomfortable. And it's with something that we fucking know. This isn't me sounding entitled. It's that we know it's coming. And because Microsoft won't say anything, all we have is the rumors that are mostly unsatisfactory.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like the video game industry is like high school all over again, with just these rumors that are just fucking blowing completely out of control because nobody's deciding, let's talk about this. Let's fucking... Here's what's actually happening. That's just all they need to say. And, obviously... They have those plans in motion already. They know when they're going to announce the goddamn thing, but I wish it was sooner rather than later.
Well, and they might want to think about adjusting those plans because it's, they're going to want to recapture some of this, bad press and turn it into good press. But I think we both have been speculating for a while now that their press conference will be very different than Sony's. I don't think gaming will be the focus.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not. I definitely think their trajectory has been for a long time now. We're not that interested in games anymore. We are more interested in being an entertainment hub.
And they're not going to recapture any of their bad press from the gaming industry specifically with that.
Yeah.
They will maybe get on CNN for that, but I think the people they probably do want to target, I don't know. I think all their sort of strategies right now confuse me on that level. So we shall see.
Yes.
All right. Anything else going on in the world we want to talk about?
I don't think so.
All right.
I think you want to get into the actual topic now.
All right. So... we are going to talk about the Evil Dead remake. Came out last week, I believe. It's been out for like about a week and a half now.
Yeah.
So the 2 weekends. It was the number one movie its first weekend. I don't know what the box office standings are this week, but we can... Anyway, that's not important. Just a lot of people have seen it. Probably a good one to talk about because Sean's a big fan of the series.
Yeah.
I like all the people involved, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. But if you have not seen the Evil Dead remake, the new one, don't listen to this segment. You can look at the time chart, come back for the Doctor Who discussion later on, or just stop listening to the episode, come back when you've seen the movie.
I think you know what your options are. I think they can figure it out. You decide how you want to listen to the goddamn podcast. Don't let Jonathan tell you what to do.
All right. So, spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sean.
Yes.
Evil Dead.
Most of the people die, right? That was fucking crazy. Fucking spoilers. Jesus.
All right. So, Sean, you saw this like the weekend it came out, right?
Yeah. I went with my dad.
Okay. I saw it today because we needed something to talk about for the podcast. And I feel like I need a shower now.
Yeah.
Or several.
It's a fucking brutal movie.
Yes.
And I tried to tell you that, but I knew it's like there's no words can convey just how fucking gruesome this movie is.
No words can convey. This is a powerful, visceral experience.
Yeah.
So, general opinions, Sean. Let's just talk about where we're approaching this from. I have never seen any of the Evil Dead movies, and they're on my list. It's just something I did not get around to. I was going to watch them in preparation for the remake. Didn't have time to, and I'm actually glad about that because I do like... So many people online have the perspective when remakes come out of just doing a bunch of comparisons, and I kind of like sometimes being a voice where it's just like, I'm experiencing this as fresh, and if it doesn't work fresh, then it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
That's for instance, the Total Recall movie that came out last year. I took a lot of shit online for reviewing it without having seen the Arnold Schwarzenegger version, despite this having nothing to do with the Arnold Schwarzenegger version. It was still a terrible movie.
Yeah.
But anyway... Evil Dead, that's kind of where I'm coming from. Where are you coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the Evil Dead. I've seen Evil Dead 2, but it's been a pretty long time. Like, the last time I saw the Evil Dead was last Halloween, so that one's pretty fresh on my mind. And then I've seen Army of Darkness. Obviously, Army of Darkness is a very different kind of movie.
Yeah.
And I really like those movies. They're definitely, really... Those are cult movies for a reason. They are really, really good, and I definitely recommend seeing them. Like, they still hold up, even though the effects are definitely a lot cheesier than they are in the remake, but... fucking Bruce Campbell, awesome.
Sam Raimi?
Yeah, Sam Raimi, awesome. Yes. I loved in this one just all the little, the new director, like all his little nods to the stuff that Sam Raimi did, like the classic, like, it's really shaky, like really fast camera, like something's creeping up on you, but you don't know what the fuck it is.
I love those, and I have not seen those movies, but that's something Sam Raimi does in everything, so I really knew that. I'm like, that's Sam Raimi cinematography.
Yeah, like, that shot is just like, that's just like the Evil Dead, like, I don't know, there's something about, like, it's like very specific, and I think that the director was Fede Alvarez did just a phenomenal job copying. Not copying, but like paying homage to that style while still obviously doing his own thing. Because I thought the cinematography and the direction in this one was fucking phenomenal.
Yeah. So, what did you think of this movie overall?
I loved it. I want to say it's like this movie was so much fun, and it feels weird saying that because it is such a brutal movie, but that's what it is. Like, it's fun because it's brutal and fucking disgusting and just like really ridiculous and over the top, but in like the perfect ways. And then it ends with like fucking Mia stabbing the abomination in the face with a chainsaw and fucking like ripping it to pieces. It was fucking awesome. Like, this movie was fucking awesome. But if you can't stand violence, stay the fuck away. Like,
if you have nightmares easily,
stay the fuck away from this movie. Like, this is definitely a movie that I feel like I've read some reviews of like some movie critics that like just really didn't like the movie, and I was just reading them and like, you just shouldn't have seen this movie. Like, like you're wrong kind of person to see a movie like this.
Right, like Richard Roper reviewed it.
Yeah, that was the one I was thinking of specifically.
Definitely. And why did he even go? I mean, like, it's his job, but I get that. But, at that point, just write it off and write a fucking 2-sentence blurb, say it's not for me.
Yeah.
Because at the very least, I can't believe anyone would watch this movie and not appreciate the craftsmanship and the acting.
Yeah.
And I'll just say I loved it too. I think Sean hit the nail on the head. It is ridiculously fun, and I think it's actually summed up well in their poster because I've got the Wikipedia page up, and it reminded me the tagline they've been using for this movie is the most terrifying film you will ever experience. And I know a lot of people, when they first put out this poster, took umbrage with that. Like, who do they think they are? That's sarcastic.
Exactly. It's like, anybody taking that seriously is pretty dumb. Like,
and I think that kind of sums up the movies. I think that's kind of the spirit of horror, is that it's you're not literally going to be like scared and like it's going to change your life. It's about being scared can be fun.
Yeah.
This movie is legitimately terrifying, I think.
Yeah.
It really is effectively unsettling and scary, and that is something fun. It's kind of like, it reminded me of going to like a haunted house or going to an amusement park that has like a scary ride or something, where the experience can be kind of intense and uncomfortable while you're doing it, but then afterwards you're just like laughing, and even in the moment you're really enjoying it because it's prompting an emotion, and that's kind of what we go to the movies for. And you know, with a drama we go maybe to think and sort of have more melancholy, thoughtful emotions. Evil Dead, its purpose is to make you scared and to have fun with that fear, and it really hits that nail on the head. Yeah,
definitely. And I thought, like, the most difficult task this movie had would be to sort of replicate the tone of the original movies, because while, like, they're campy, but they're not, like, you know, other than, obviously, Army of Darkness, they're not ridiculously campy. They're not like Leprechaun or something like that, or like Thanksgiving, of like these just like...
Does that exist?
Yeah, no, it's Thanksgiving, the slasher movie where a turkey kills people.
Okay.
But that's, you know, that's like half of horror movies are dumb slasher movies like that are fun and campy, but they're effectively comedies. But in the Evil Dead sort of like feels like that in a weird way, but it's still a horror movie. It's still really unsettling. It's still scary, but it's really over the top, and it's like its effects, some of the dialogue, you know, like, I don't remember specific lines from the original movie right now, but like from this remake, you know, when like the dude with the long hair is just like, she cut her fucking arm off, and like just like at certain points how ridiculous the levels of abuse these characters are taking is kind of funny, but also completely horrific at the same time. And it's like such a delicate balance that like the original Evil Dead, I thought, nailed, and that's what makes it such a good movie, and that this remake did as well. And I was so surprised that it nailed it this well, because I didn't even necessarily expect it to try to tackle that more ridiculous and kind of funny, campy side of it, but it definitely did and nailed it in the exact same way. In the exact same way.
And I think what I liked about that too is there were moments where I was kind of chuckling to myself in spite of myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the movie's ever overtly funny, overtly campy.
Yeah.
But it's in the DNA.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, Raimi and Campbell are in this movie in spirit.
Yeah.
And I think that's clear, and there are just moments where, you know, when the hot blonde chick reaches for that chainsaw, it's like, you know what's coming, and you're just sort of giggling through the fear.
Yeah.
And through the disgustment, because they fucking show that.
Yeah, God, the effects in this movie.
I mean, Sean, usually when that happens is she goes in, you cut away, you hear it, and you come back and it's gone. Is that what they did in this movie?
No, that's never what they did in this movie.
No.
This movie could have just been titled "We Didn't Cut Away."
Yeah.
Ever. Yeah. Because, God damn it, this movie is fucking brutal.
Do we want to talk about that? Just elephant in the room?
I mean, sure, that is what you talk. I feel like that's almost the only thing to talk about with this movie. Is just like that's what you come away from the movie with. It's just like these memories of just scenes of like, oh my fucking God, I can't believe they did that, but that was awesome.
Oh God, I know. And the thing is, I think why I am so excited to see more from this director, Fede Alvarez, because he did a great job with this movie. Yeah. And I think part of what he did is, the pacing is perfect.
Yeah.
Pacing just really ramping up. I think he really understands horror language and sort of Chekhovian plotting, all these things that we'll get to later in the discussion. But with the violence specifically, he ramps it up, and there's a steady curve. You know, it's not just... The first scene is not the raining blood. The first scene is the girl in the basement, and it's violent, but that's actually, we do cut away.
Yeah.
We don't see her head get blown off. And so... That's the first scene, and it's kind of easing you in, and the movie kind of gets worse and worse until Jane Levy is cutting her tongue in half with a box cutter, and Hot Blonde Chick is cutting her arm off, and then Hot Blonde Chick is shooting nails into people, and then she's getting nails shot into her,
and then beating people with a fucking crowbar.
Yeah, and the nurse is cutting her own chin off, and cheeks and stuff, and then at the end, raining blood and ripping her own arm off of a car, and then, you know, chainsaw blowjob, basically. Yeah. So, good curve there, I think.
Yeah, it definitely, it ramps up.
So when I say I feel like I need a shower, that's because by the end, you've just been watching Jane Levy get showered in blood for about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and you empathize.
Yeah, you do.
So, what else do you want to say?
I mean, I guess, do we want to, like, cover the characters a little bit, I guess. I don't know where to... It's hard to talk about horror movies kind of in the same way it's hard to talk about comedies in like a sort of more critical sense.
Let's stick on the violence for a little bit.
Okay.
Because, violence can be fun and cathartic, and this is actually something, The Cabin in the Woods, which takes a lot of stuff from Evil Dead.
Yeah. The horror half of Cabin in the Dead, or Cabin in the Wood, is just Evil Dead.
Yeah. And so that movie came out last year, Joss Whedon, big, cult sensation, because it's very funny, very astute, and one of the things I think it's commenting on is, that violence can be just fucking cathartic, even though they kind of contextualize it and show, if you were actually living these characters' lives, that would be fucking terrible.
Yeah.
But there's something cathartic in the voyeuristic sense, and I think this movie very much understands that, and one of the best choices that is made in this movie is I just read this quote from the director, there is no CGI in the film other than touch-ups that you naturally need when you're editing the movie. And did that work for you, just having all practical effects?
Oh, yeah. The effects work was... in a movie like this, the effects is, practically half the fucking movie. Because if you can't buy that, you can't buy any of it. And... yeah, those were practical effects, and those were really fucking good practical effects.
I think that's one of the things that unsettled me so much is you had warned me, Jonathan, this is a graphic fucking movie.
Yeah.
But I think I'm so used to the graphic in the sense of you can so clearly tell everything's faked, and because this is all practical effects, it doesn't look 100% faked all the time or anything,
Yeah.
And so when the blood starts coming early on, I was not prepared for how real that shit looked. Mm-hmm. And obviously by the end, it's completely ridiculous, but... when she's cutting her, face off, that's fucking brutal. And and it doesn't...
God.
It's something ridiculous, but they make it look grounded, and that's really interesting. And I think, I gotta look at the exact figure here, but the amount of blood they had, the fake blood they, trucked in for this movie is incredible, and I hope I can find the quote. I don't know if I can.
But yeah, it's definitely, they just... when the movie literally ends with raining blood... yeah, it's a bloody movie.
Yeah, and I cannot find the figure immediately. It's somewhere in the vicinity of 150,000 gallons of fake blood, and that's incredible.
It's a lot of blood.
Yeah. So I do want to talk plot a little bit, because I actually think this is one of the things that impressed me the most about it, is that, again, going back to Cabin in the Woods, for instance, just because that is kind of touching upon a lot of cliches and stuff, is that this trope of going to a cabin in the woods usually is just clearly a setup for the violence. It's not any other thing than to get the characters there. And in this movie, I think it surpasses that pretty brilliantly, actually, because I think there's this very basic, simple choice of the main character, Mia, played by Jane Levy, and then her brother is David. They and their friends have gone to this cabin in the woods, not for any frivolous reason. There's no sex in the movie, there's no drugs. Well, there are drugs, but it's actually the inverse, because Mia is a cocaine addict or something, and they need to get her to withdraw. And so they go to the cabin, which is not a terrible idea if they didn't know the Necronomicon was there.
Yeah.
So, not a bad idea. And I think, narratively, I think that's a really good idea, because immediately there's something grounded in here that is serious and thoughtful, and I really like that. And it also builds Mia out as a character really fast. It builds David out as a character really fast. The other three are less sketched out, and that's a complaint I would have to a certain degree. But I think those two main characters and the relationship they share, and they take enough time to flesh that out, I like that. And I like that the characters really do matter in that regard. And I don't know how that worked in the original Evil Dead, because I haven't seen it. But I do like that there was something dark here, and then the drug element is able to carry through the whole movie as it becomes kind of this weird sort of nightmarish ultimate nth extension of drug withdrawal,
Yeah, it's definitely that, because that sort of setup really wasn't part of the original movie, and the original movie definitely had this characterization, but this is able to do it in a much more economical way of having the characters already having sort of an ordeal to face before the shit actually goes down. It's sort of a really interesting way to sort of try to plot out the movie, and it really gets you to feel like you almost stepped into a completely different movie. Halfway through, there's this other movie about Mia, who's a drug addict, and her mom was in an insane asylum, and her brother couldn't take it, so he left it for Chicago or whatever. And it's but now she has to deal with withdrawal and stuff like that, and try to get off her cocaine habit. It's you feel like you just stepped into that movie, and then, oh God, you just read a passage out of the Necronomicon, you idiot, and everybody's dying.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely helps you really empathize with the characters really quickly. And it also has this other effect of, it makes a lot of the normal dumb things that horror characters do make a lot more sense in that, every single horror movie, there is that point in the movie where you're like, you idiots can just back out of this right now, no problem. Like, you can just walk away from the situation and, like, you would face no consequences for that, and they never do. And in this movie, they have a reason to stay at the cabin. They have a reason to sort of, like, not immediately freak out at what Mia's doing because she has withdrawal symptoms, and they've gone through this process before, she's backed out of it before, and so they're, like, serious about the intervention now, and so that makes a lot of their character behavior a lot more realistic in that, we can't just leave the cabin because there are, like, really real consequences for Mia if we let her just fall back into her drug habit again.
And I also think it keeps the characters feeling human throughout.
Yeah.
So, for instance, after Mia crashes the car and gets raped by the tree, which is an absolutely horrific scene. I mean, that's as straight as the movie ever plays, I think, in terms of really trying to... I don't think it's trying to be funny there. That's a really... that's not even particularly visually graphic, but it's tough to watch because it's, terrible shit is going on with Mia. But, when she comes back after that and she's rambling on about... what's the terrible things in the woods. Usually at that point in the movie, you hate all the other characters because
it's like, why won't you just believe her just a little bit? Believe her just enough that it's like there's obviously freaky shit going on, so get the fuck out of there.
But it makes sense because she's a drug addict and in withdrawal. That's something that someone would say.
Yeah.
And so that all works. I guess a question for me, I guess I would ask you is, what did you think of the actual discovery of the Necronomicon, and then the hippie dude whose name I cannot remember, was Eric. Eric actually reading it. Did that work for you?
It felt a little bit contrived, but it's like it is always like there is no believable situation, and because actually, I'm trying to remember. I think in the original The Evil Dead, I think they play a tape that they found of someone else reading the Necronomicon. I don't remember exactly. It's something like that. I think it's like it was a little more believable in the original Evil Dead, and this one is definitely... That is the hardest part for me to just be like, come on, dude. That book is bound in human flesh. Like, don't... And, like, I like actually the Necronomicon in this movie, how it, like... There's, like, people have, like, scribbled all over it and stuff because they can't destroy it, but they're like, motherfucker, don't read this book. I think that literally that line is in there. Motherfucker, don't read this book. And it's like they've, like, scratched over the passages, and he, like, puts a fucking piece of paper and traces over it. Like, he goes to pretty elaborate lengths to try to read that passage. And it's like, that's a little bit unbelievable, but then they also spend the rest of the movie absolutely fucking destroying that guy in a way they don't any of the other characters. Like, they horribly mutilate the other people, but Eric just gets beaten and beaten and beaten throughout the entire movie when shit starts going down.
His death is great.
Yeah, he's my favorite death of the whole movie, because it's not, like, really bombastic. It's not, he gets completely eviscerated or, like, torn apart or something. He's just, like, he just sort of just dies. He's, like, he's gone through all this shit. He's gotten beaten to just like nothing. He's like a fucking bloody pulp, and he's just like, and he just dies.
Yep. He gets his one line to complete his character arc.
Yeah.
Forgives David, and that's it. He's dead. It's great.
Like, he just dies.
And that is what kind of redeemed it for me. Is first off, I thought it was so clear from the moment he walks on screen that he's the guy who's going to read the book.
Yeah. Well, he has that weird interest with the occult, which is like supposed to be their justification for why he reads it. But shouldn't that be the justification for why he wouldn't read it? Because he would actually believe there would be consequences if he, like, summons an evil spirit?
But, it's enough to get you into the moment.
Yeah.
And then, I'm like, he's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, it's like every single horror movie, like I said, there's, like, that... Like, even though this movie, like, sidesteps most of them, there's always going to be one. Because, like, to get people into a situation this horrific, you kind of have to make some sort of contrivance about, like, how it's sort of their fault. Because it can't just happen to them, because that's not that interesting.
Right. And so, but that's the thing, the payoff to him doing it is so great. I mean, just going through it mentally, I thought he was going to die, like, at 8 different points. Because first, there's the scene where he goes into the nurse, and I forget her name.
Nurse.
The nurse.
I think it's Olivia.
Olivia is the one, I kind of want to use the characters' names because they did make an effort to make these people characters, and I like that. But anyway, he goes into Olivia where she's going to be sawing off her own cheek, which is a great scene I want to talk about later. Yeah. But anyway, he goes in there. She first stabs him with the piece of glass she was using, which I thought, is that the killing blow? Because it was near his heart.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there's that. And then she starts just stabbing him with a needle. I would want to die after that. That would fucking hurt.
Yeah.
He has to rip it out of his cheek. So then later on, he gets shot with like 20 nails.
Yeah, like he gets shot with nails so bad that it's like his arm gets stuck to his chest because of the nails.
Then he gets his hand, like, she hits it with the crowbar, and his hand just splits in half.
Yeah, and she keeps hitting him with the crowbar. Yeah. That's just the most horrific crowbar wound he suffers.
Right. And so you think he's going to die from the crowbar then. And then finally, no, it's none of that. He still is somehow alive, and then he's in the water, and he just, dead.
He's just finally just like, fucking, I'm done.
It almost felt like at some point in the script, they realized, technically we need a sixth person, but we can just keep this guy alive long enough to play this role, and then we can have fun with that.
Yeah.
So, I think you could very easily have killed him at any one of those points and had an extra character there who would fulfill the function in the water basement scene.
Yeah.
But it's great the way it is.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but let's talk about that, because I think the first hugely horrific thing that happens in the movie is Olivia cutting her face off. Is that?
Yeah, probably.
Okay,
well, I'm trying to remember. It's been like weeks since I watched the movie, so I don't remember this.
Mia's tree rape happens before that, and that's obviously very tough to watch. But it's they don't show it necessarily.
Yeah, it's not done in the same like really graphic, gratuitous way. Because if it was like that, this movie would be like completely X-rated, and you would never be able to see it. But.
Yeah. The studio chief would have had a heart attack and it would have been banned and but anyway. So I think this to me sums up what the movie does so fucking well is this scene, because first you have her looking in the mirror and suddenly the door shifts, because that happens all the time in this movie.
Yeah, it is like my favorite type of jump scare is the bathroom mirror jump scare, where there's like two different alternatives. It's either a medicine cabinet and you open the medicine cabinet and when you close it there's something there, or you're at the sink and you go down to wash your face in the sink and then you come up and oh god, there's something in the mirror.
And her whole cheeks and stuff are missing, so it's just her lower jawbone is exposed. It's a totally graphic image, and she understandably backs away.
And one thing I like about that is that while that is really shocking, it's not necessarily a jump scare. And I thought that was really interesting that they don't play the huge orchestra sting and and then it's he turns around and there's nothing there kind of thing. It's they make it really slow and just she slowly closes the door and then you see it and she's like, oh, what the fuck?
We notice it before she does.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, most jump scares are in line with the characters and the audience.
Yeah.
This one was a little separated. I like that too. So then she sees that. Then we see the book where there's the image of the girl cutting her face off.
Yeah.
And so we know this is going to happen at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're away from her for a while. And then we start hearing this it's really soft in the background.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure that's what it is at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But then it gets louder. It's that's sawing.
Yeah.
Oh god, that's the sawing of human skin. And now Eric's walking in. And he's moving slowly. And it's
and the door closes itself behind him.
Yeah.
I love that moment. All of these scenes, always the door closes itself and then oh fuck.
But the tension in that scene just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, because by the time he's going to pull the curtain of the shower back, we know what we're going to see, and we don't want to see it, because that's disgusting and horrific, and it's oh my fucking god, I don't want to see that. And then the payoff, first you see her doing it, it's just as horrific as you thought, and that's oh god, but the payoff is great, because he slips on the piece of
a little piece of her cheek and hits his head on the toilet. Yeah, that... Yeah, it's just this additional little fuck you.
Yeah.
It's just now you get this reality of, there's this large chunk of human flesh on the ground and it's fucking slippery because it's covered in blood.
Yeah.
Thank you for that movie.
And you said little piece. I saw today it's her whole cheek.
It's little in the scope of the entire human body, little.
Right. But I mean, it's the size of his fucking foot, and it's just seeing it separated, it's just... and that's the thing I love about this movie is when you talk about it, you laugh at it because it's fun, and in the moment you're not laughing at that, but inside you're this is genius.
Yeah.
And it kind of is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But, alright, when we were talking about this movie earlier away from the podcast, you had that one Hitchcock quote, and I think it's worth breaking out.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact quote, but it's Hitchcock had this thing of suspense is showing people the bomb under the table at the beginning of a scene, knowing that it's going to go off. Suspense is not having the bomb blow up in the middle of the scene, because that's just surprise and shock. And that is definitely, this movie subscribes to that theory of how you do horror, because Because, like you said, it's the same thing with, like, the sawing off the cheek thing. Like, you know that's what's happening. You know she's in there sawing off her cheek because they've laid that groundwork. You know what that sound is. It's like, and you're waiting for it to come. And when it comes, it's fucking terrifying. If it was just there, it'd be really shocking and it would be a jump scare, but then it'd be like, whatever. Like, you'd forget about it immediately. And that movie does that for all of this.
Yes, and it's so brilliant because there's layers upon layers of that foreshadowing. You know, very sort of Chekhovian idea of if there's a gun in the first act, it's going to go off. There are all sorts of guns, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is that early on when they're going down into the cellar for the first time, one of the floorboards or steps is creaky.
Yeah, it's like rotten and it like bends down when he steps on it. It's like, hey, everybody, watch that step. And he should have said, but remember to keep watching it for the rest of the movie. Yeah. When shit goes down, I swear you're going to forget it, so just try not to.
And so, but people keep going in there, and you keep thinking, this is the time it's going to break. This is the time it's going to break. But finally, Natalie, the girlfriend, goes in to talk to Jane Levy, and that's when it fucking breaks, is when she's trying to get out, and she's stuck, and then she gets the box cutter, and Jane Levy cuts her fucking tongue in half.
Yeah.
And it's... Oh, God. Like, that's just a great use of that. I like that early on. There's actually a great shot where it takes up the full frame of one of the women cutting the steak with the, like, auto saw thing.
Yeah.
And it's, like, the cutting of literal... It's flesh. It's just animal flesh. And it's like, that's going to happen later, isn't it?
Yeah, you know that thing is going to come up again.
And I think that's the best example of sort of the fun of that, is that you don't know exactly what that's going to be used for at this point. Is it going to be someone's going to get stabbed with it? What? But when it comes to the arm is like, you know, rotted, and Natalie clearly needs to get rid of this arm, and she looks over and sees that, and then that moment of realization, like, oh, like, first there's the recoil, like, this is going to be awful, but then there's like, this is going to be awesome, because that's a callback to the Evil... I even have not seen them, I know that's a callback to.
Yeah.
Bruce
Like
Campbell
Ash
movies.
very famously loses his hand and replaces it with a goddamn chainsaw. Because, he cuts his hand off because it's possessed.
Yeah. So and just the way they pace that scene, wonderful. And it's a great use of that idea of, you know, the suspense is, we know that chainsaw's there. It's going to go off at some point.
Yeah.
And then there's another, even bigger chainsaw later.
Yeah, and they do the same thing where it's a great... That's one of my favorite sequences of, like... It's, like, the most obvious callback to the original films. Famously feature chainsaws, but like there's that moment where the brother decides, you know, I need to, like, I'm going to take care of shit now, and it's like there's this very Evil Dead moment where he like rips off this like tarp, and it's like he's got all this stuff and he's like making shit. It's very similar to Evil Dead 2 when Ash is like making, like, attaching the chainsaw to his arm. It's like groovy. Like, it's very similar to that scene. Like, it's very similarly paced. And there's, like, it's great because, like, the moment when he takes off the tarp, you see a chainsaw there. And it's like, but he doesn't use the chainsaw yet. And you know it's like, yes, that chainsaw is going to come up again. Then I love when it comes up, because then that's later, the end of the movie, when Mia comes back and all that shit happens. Mia's in that place again, and I was like, grab the chainsaw. Grab the fucking chainsaw. And then she's like, reaches over, sees a machete, she reaches for the machete. I'm like, not the machete! And then she's like, reaches up for the chainsaw. I'm like, yes, the fucking chainsaw! Yes! And it's like such a great moment. Even though it's like, realistically, you probably should have grabbed the fucking machete, but yeah, chainsaw!
She has to... I love that, too, because they delay the gratification where she has to put the gas in.
Yeah.
And I love that there's just a water bottle that says chainsaw gas.
Yeah.
That's great. But, man, So this movie, I mean, basically, it's very, simple structure in that, they get to the cabin, there's some build-up, and then shit starts going down. And, this could in many ways be a short film in that regard. It's so focused.
Yeah.
But it reaches the 90 minutes very naturally because I think the pacing is very good. Yeah. It's pretty rare that there's just stuff going. They've got the ups and the downs, and I think that's something that this film understands that maybe a lot of modern horror and modern action does not. Is that pacing is not just going as fast as you can. It's having the ups and the downs.
Yeah. Yeah, like, if people are cutting up their face for the entire movie, it's not that shocking. It's like, you need those moments of, like, the characters are just sitting around thinking, like, oh, holy fuck, like, she cut her fucking arm off! Like, you need those moments.
And that's when the movie is at its most horrifying, because that's when you're fully empathizing with these people and thinking, like, what the fuck would I do in this situation? Yeah. And you have no idea, because it's like, this is crazy. And then it will embrace the crazy, and that's when it's great,
Yeah.
So I think it really gets that, and I guess the next part I want to talk about is, people slowly, like, they die off. And I actually like the other thing is that it's never a simple just, someone dies off. They really do play with all 5 of these characters.
Yeah.
The only one who is offed quickly, I guess, is Olivia.
Yeah.
And other than that, they kind of go back and forth. Obviously, Eric gets fucking tortured, but Natalie has to cut her arm off, and then there's more with her.
Yeah.
She has to, come back to herself after she's lost both limbs and she's dying in her boyfriend's arms.
Yeah.
But then I think the ending is the part I want to talk about, and I would define the ending as kind of anything after starting with that moment where the groovy, where he could say groovy. But he doesn't, because they've got to save that for Bruce Campbell after the credits, because he's the guy who gets to say that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy none of the characters of the movie said groovy. That would have been that would be a bit too much of a straight callback. Well,
especially because at that moment he's going to kill his sister. But anyway, from that moment on, I think that's my favorite stretch of the movie, because that's when it kind of pulls the rug out from under you, and you don't know what to predict anymore, because he's going to bury her alive, and he's got this plan to save her, and he succeeds. And that's what's so surprising, is that they don't have... The movie could end there, as you said.
Yeah.
The movie...
like one thing, like this is how I was kind of expecting the movie to end, like we were talking before the podcast of, I'm glad that this movie doesn't really do this, of like, every fucking horror movie ever does the thing where the end of the movie is, oh, everything's resolved. No, it's not. Smash the credits. It's like, oh, everything's done. It's like, no, but Jason's still alive, or Freddy's still out there, or fucking, Mike Myers he's not done yet, or like, even like Dead Space. I always think of Dead Space because Dead Space has a really dumb one of like, oh, everything's done. No, your girlfriend who's already dead has come back as a zombie and she's in the ship, and none of this makes sense. And Smash the credits is like, what the fuck was that jump scare? Like, every single horror movie does that, and so I was expecting the end of the movie would be, he buries her alive, then brings her back, like, stabs her in the chest with the thing, and I thought it was going to be, he thinks she's actually back, and it's like, it's Mia, it's like, everything's fine, but it's actually, she's still a Deadite, and, like, the Evil Dead, like, the Evil Force thing is still just, like, fucking with him, because that's what it does. It fucks with you the entire movie. It's like, and it's very conscious of, like, it manipulates you. So I thought it was going to be like, oh, it's like, yeah, she's alive. And it's like, come on, Mia, we're going to get out of here. Everything's fine. And, like, they're in the car or something. And it's like, yeah, everything's great. And then, like, he looks up in the mirror and, like, sees her. And she's all, like, still dead-eyed. Like, her eyes are, like, yellow and shit. And it's like, oh, smash the credits. But it doesn't do that.
No, it doesn't do that at all. And it pays off something else that I don't think is easy to remember because you're focusing on other elements. But that's that. Yeah. First off, she is just Mia. She's back.
Yeah.
And so they're together, and then
and it's really nice just that, like, you didn't realize how much you really cared about that character because because at least for me, like, knowing the mythology of the series, once someone turns into a dead, it's like, they basically become zombies, but they're a lot more interesting than just being zombies. Once someone becomes a deadite, there's no real coming back from that. Or at least that's the original movies. That's like what you always come to expect. And you're like, and all these characters are going to think there's a way for them to come back, but there never is. And so you're like, I'm seeing there's just kill her, because I know you should just kill her, but obviously those characters can't bring themselves to do that. So it's really interesting to, like, no, she can come back, and it's like, I really liked this character. It's like, it's really nice for her to actually be back and, like, normal again, like as normal as you can be after going through all this shit. But
and I actually think the other thing we should say about that moment is it pays off some really nice stuff earlier in the movie where they talk about how she had died before from an OD, and they had to use a defibrillator. So that's where he gets the idea, which is a pretty crazy idea, attach a car battery to her, but it's sourced in something. And so this is a satisfying moment it's the fulfillment of that idea of this movie as a metaphor for drug withdrawal.
Yeah.
This is the kind of ultimate nth degree he has to go to, and so he also has to fulfill his arc of finally being there for her and taking this risk. Because, if that didn't work, he'd be fucked.
Yeah.
And so it really is fulfilling, and then suddenly you're like, oh yeah, Eric's dead in the basement. And suddenly Eric's back, and he has to, shoot the gas tank and blow the house up, which is a great scene, and that's a great way for him to die. But then the thing starts crying out of the ground, and you remember... Yeah, because she's technically died, and now David killed himself, all 5 of them are dead. So that fulfills the prophecy. And I'd had it in the back of my head, but I was not totally conscious.
I was throughout the movie counting up the deaths being like, because I thought that was really interesting, because I thought they were going to try to pay that off, because that's not something, I don't remember if that's like an aspect of the mythology from the earlier movies or not, but I was like, but I felt like they were really specifically were trying to establish something specific with the mythology of this version of the Necronomicon, how they have the the different ways to dispose of the deadites written in there, and all the different mutilations that they perform on themselves and shit like that. And specifically, after the evil force claims 5 souls, the abomination rises from the grave and blood shall rain from the sky. I was like, that's probably going to happen sometime in this movie. But then when I got to the end, I was like, or is it?
Yeah.
And I was like, because you don't know whether or not you should count Mia's death, so you're not sure whether or not she'll be able to get away.
So it's a very tight structure, but it's one that keeps you guessing here. And so what I love is once it starts raining blood, you are not on sound footing anymore. You have no idea what to expect. Mia could very easily die. This movie could be totally bleak at the end. The Abomination could win and go off, and that's like the setup for the sequel. Like, well, Earth's fucked.
Well,
or something.
I mean, not really.
Okay,
this is like one of the small points. I mean, like, maybe the Earth would have been fucked if it had been like, the 14th century.
Okay, that's true.
Because, the only thing the Abomination really has going for it is it's really strong, because it, like, can lift the car. Yeah. But, she kills it with a chainsaw. A shotgun to the face would take that fucking thing.
Yeah, and I wasn't thinking about that because this movie does not have a lot of modern technology.
But, like, it's something where it's like, obviously, Mia is in very apparent danger, but it was like, if the Abomination gets out, not that big a deal.
Yeah.
Like, I think we can take care of one really strong, really pissed off chick,
Yeah. So anyway, but the point still stands. That's an unpredictable part of the movie, and so you have her running around. It's raining blood, so she is just covered in blood. Everything's red at this point.
Yeah.
She goes into the cellar. The shack. This is where we get the she brings the chainsaw out. But then there's that great scene where she's crawling back behind the shelf and the Abomination is stabbing the machete in.
Yeah.
And that's always something you see in horror movies, too, where it goes in. This actually fucking cuts her twice.
Yeah, and, like, one of them is, like, it cuts her, and then, like, the Abomination, like, slowly pulls it out, and it's, like, the sound design in this movie is so fucking good when that moment happens. Yeah. It's just, like this, just, like, noise of that, like, blade coming out of her shoulders, just like, oh, fucking Jesus, God. Yeah. That would hurt.
Yep, but finally she's able to do it, but then, I mean, there are more wrenches thrown at you where she's under the car, and I'm wondering what she's... this is another thing I love about this movie, is what characters are doing. I'm always like, oh, what are they doing about this? And sometimes it's a bad strategy, but sometimes, like here, it seems like it's a good one. She's able to cut the Abomination's legs off, doesn't count on the Abomination flipping the car, suddenly her hand is under it, and I'm like, is she going to cut it off because that's what you think is going to happen? But she can't.
Yeah, but she can't reach the chainsaw, so instead of just cutting off her hand, she fucking, like flips around, like, kicks the car and, like, pulls it out slowly, but, like, pulls it out in the sense that she pulls her hand out of her arm. Yeah. She doesn't get it out of the car.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. I think they're kind of winking to the idea of there being an arc here because she has that line about, choosing to go on, I'm not going to give up. And it's like... That's the ultimate representation of that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much, it just, like, makes you think of, like, like a fox in a bear trap or something, like, gnawing its own leg off. Like, it's very much that, like, I don't give a shit what happens, I'm not going to fucking die. Yeah. And she, like, rips her own hand off, and that's where you get, the less ridiculous version of Ash, like, attaching a chainsaw to his hand is, like, she, like, picks up the chainsaw and, like, hooks, like, her stump underneath the handle and
Which is the grossest stump I've ever seen, because most of the bone is still coming out.
Yeah, that's one of the great things is that, like, about the practical effects is that they don't forget, like, their bones and, like, ligaments and muscles. Like, most of the time when something like that happens, it's just, like, this fleshy red chunk of blah. Yeah. This is, like... I can see, like, her ligaments tearing. I can see where her fucking joints are and her wrist. Like, this is really, really detailed.
I love thinking that was someone's job, researching human anatomy and just building it perfectly so you could destroy it.
Yeah.
So anyway, she gets that in, and then,
fucking the best part of, like, I have almost jumped out of my seat, was like, fuck yeah, when the Abomination was like, I will feast on your soul. She just says... Feast on this motherfucker and stabs her in the face with a chainsaw. It's like, fuck yeah! That was so fucking awesome.
And again, we do not cut away. We watch every inch of that.
Yeah, and it's not just she stabs her in the face with the fucking chainsaw, then she goes down and, like, cuts her down, and then she comes back up and just, like, fucking takes off, like, splits out the top of her head. Like, holy fucking shit.
That is the closest we will ever get to a Gears of War movie.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was like something from Gears of War. It's like, oh my god.
While it's still raining blood. It's just so great. And then, like, it ends.
It's like the best fucking... I wasn't expecting a one-liner from this movie, even though I should have been, knowing, like, the other Evil Dead movies. But it's like, that was such a good one. It was such a good fucking one-liner. Like, better than any action movie one-liner, because... You're not expecting the character to have this really triumphant moment in most horror movies. Like, not to that scale. It was like, but I forget, like, this is an Evil Dead movie. Evil Dead movies aren't just scary movies, they're awesome fucking movies. So of course she gets a badass one-liner and kills the monster with a chainsaw.
Absolutely, and it's just... And they set it up great because that's one of the first lines of the movie when the daughter is talking to the father. She says something like, I'll eat your soul. Yeah. It's early on. So it's great. And the word motherfucker has been scattered throughout without anyone really directing it at anyone else. So when we finally get it...
It's on this motherfucker.
Yep.
God damn.
So... That is pretty fucking great.
Yeah, it's
and of
so
course,
awesome.
At this point of the movie, and this transitions into another discussion of the movie, the main actress, the star, Jane Levy, is just covered in blood and mud and filth, and that's how she ends the movie, and you realize that must have been the most hellish shoot. I hope they got paid well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you just think about it's like, that must have been so hard to, like, be an actor on that set. Because just, like, with all since it was all practical effects, you're, like, looking at like this like really realistic depiction of like, oh, this is what it might look like if someone's arm got cut off kind of thing. There's like blood everywhere. You're just like drenched in mud and just it must have been fucking horrific to have like acted in this film.
Yeah, and I really do think it's worth giving props to all the actors because I think the main five did a legitimately great job because
and most horror movies. Like most horror movies don't ask much from the actors, and this one doesn't
it's not high drama.
Yeah, exactly. But definitely the actors bring a really good performance. It's a lot better than horror movie performances. Than I can't fault their performances. Like it's like they've worked for this movie fucking perfectly.
Well, and I think even more than that, just under those conditions and with this level of brutality, keeping a straight face and doing it all the way you need to do it to make the movie work.
Yeah.
I think that's tough, and I think they all do a really good job at that.
Yeah.
And I think, particularly, Shiloh Fernandez as David, I think he's really good throughout as just sort of, he does not pop in the way Bruce Campbell does, but they're not trying to make him
he's not Bruce Campbell. Mia is Bruce Campbell ostensibly when she becomes a Deadeye.
Right. But I just think, he's not that kind of protagonist, but he's one we're totally behind the whole movie, and I think that works. And I actually think Jane Levy is fantastic in this movie.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
In the first 30 minutes before she turns into a Deadite, I think she's really good sketching that character out and really making you see sort of the darker side of her and the side we like. And I think it really does pay off that she's really good, obviously, throughout in the middle when she's a monster, but by the end, when she comes back, we do realize just how well she did with that character in the beginning, and then she's really good at the end.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see more of her in sequels, because they know they want to take this character further. And
it's like...
Because you know what? If she and Bruce Campbell team up in a couple of movies, she can say groovy.
Yeah, totally. Without a doubt. It would obviously be a pretty sharp... Well, not that sharp of a tonal shift, but it would definitely be a tonal shift to have them teaming up. I would fucking watch the hell out of that movie. Having Mia like Ash meets up with Mia, sort of kind of tries to take her under his wing, but she's not having any of that bullshit kind of thing. It'd just be awesome. The world's goriest, most disgusting buddy cop movie.
I would love that should be the name of the movie. But that would be great, and I can totally see Mia becoming just so hardened by this experience that she would not take the shit. She would just be a badass.
Dude, I can just see the tagline: 2 people, 2 hands, 2 chainsaws. Fucking yes.
Okay, so if you don't know, this is the next part of the discussion I think we have to get into. At the end of the film, and Sean missed this sadly.
Yeah.
But at the end of the movie, during the credits, if you stay through them, and they're actually really cool because they show all the imagery from the Necronomicon, and I think it's that they had it in the movie, so they're worth watching for that alone, and the music's really good. But then about a minute and a half out from the end, the audio is heard from basically the first film, Evil Dead, and it's the professor. It's like what you said, where he reads.
Yeah, they play the tape.
Yeah, so he's reading the tape and he's talking about the book and what he's found. It's like, I've awakened something terrible, and then
they are coming.
Yeah, and so it
cannot get out.
Yep, and so it's coming. That's kind of funny. Lord of the Rings is like Evil Dead in that way.
Yeah,
and I would not be surprised if Peter Jackson modeled it that way because he's such a horror junkie.
Yeah.
So anyway, but he's reading that, and so we get to the end, and if you've ever watched a movie through to the end, the credits, they show the studio logos again, they go through all that while he's still reading it, and then it cuts to black for a second, and then you see, an older man, a little bit of an older man in portrait, and if you know who this guy is, you're like, that's Bruce Campbell, isn't it? And he says, groovy, and turns to the camera and smiles, and it just cuts. And this is not from another movie. This is modern day 2013 Bruce Campbell, and fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So, and what their intention is, as I understand it, Fede Alvarez and Sam Raimi have both talked about this, that Alvarez wants to make a sequel to his movie, as they should. It's been a big hit, and I'm sure they could do a lot of things with it. And then Sam Raimi wants to make an Army of Darkness 2, and so maybe they will both make those movies, and then they would do a seventh film in the overall franchise, merge the two stories, and have, the bloodiest violent buddy cop movie ever, Ash and Mia together. How great would that be if that actually pans out?
I like that this feels like we're taking some really weird lesson from the Avengers now. It's like we're establishing these two different characters along these different continuities, and and then they merge in this crossover movie. It's like without the Avengers that wouldn't be possible. But
and
now
you know what?
Yes.
You know what? They're gonna fight first too. They're gonna
exactly. Fucking chainsaw duel.
Yep.
One-handed chainsaw duel.
It's gonna be great. So I'm so excited for the possibilities here, because I'm so glad this movie is a relative hit, because we'll definitely at least get another one in this continuity. I think Raimi has the clout because he just made Oz the Great and Powerful, which is making fuck tons of money worldwide, and he did all the Spider-Man movies. I think he can make his Army of Darkness 2. Bruce Campbell's on board. Bruce Campbell has clout, obviously, and then hopefully we can get our team-up movie. So
that would be so fucking awesome.
This is suddenly one of the most exciting franchises in Hollywood.
Yeah, right. Nobody I was not expecting to be so excited about Evil Dead in this way.
Yeah,
I was excited to see this movie, but it's but then once they start talking about plans to continue the original continuity and then merge these continuities together, it's I can't wait for the conversation where it's they both Ash and Mia are both asking each other how did you start fighting Deadites, and they both realize. We came about these situations in the exact same fucking... you went to a cabin and found, a creepy, flesh-covered book in the basement, and some asshole read a passage, and it's everybody started to get crazy, had to kill everybody. This is really weird.
Yeah, I've even seen an interview with Fede Alvarez where he talked about how he can, in his own mind, connect the continuities where...
because, the Evil Dead would have taken place in the 80s.
Right.
So,
30 years later.
Ash, went into I guess he's back now, but he went to the past for a while. So there is time travel stuff within the Army of Darkness continuity, so...
Yeah. So, basically what he said is that, that cabin would have gotten abandoned after Evil Dead 2, so... a new family came in. This is specifically the main character's family in the film, we see. And then it fell into disrepair, and by the time we get to 2013, here we are. And I kind of, it's you know what? That works, surprisingly.
Yeah.
I would love in 10 years to be able to buy, the massive 7-film Evil Dead box set on Blu-ray with all of them.
The Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, Evil Dead... Whatever the Evil Dead 2, I guess. Army of Darkness.
Evil Dead Into Darkness.
Yeah.
An unexpected Evil Dead. I have to do it.
Yeah.
Army of Darkness 2, and then Evil Dead 7, because why not?
Yeah. Fuck, yeah. Yeah, that's...
2 people, 2 hands, 2 chainsaws.
Yep.
All right. So, do we have anything more to say about Evil Dead?
I guess the one other thing I want to touch on is that I was watching the movie. I was really fucking impressed by the way the movie looked.
Oh, cinematography is great.
That's usually, again, from horror movies, that's not something that's really called for all that much, is having, even just, really nothing moments near the beginning of the movie where Mia's sitting on her car and her brother walks up to her and it's just she's sitting on the car, there's a tree there, and this the oppressive gray fog is just there's just such great use of color in the movie in this really dark, dreary way.
I wanted to touch on that because a lot of horror movies as of late, I think the Saw franchise is largely responsible for this, are just a lot of grays and browns, and it's ugly. This movie is dark, but it's never murky. It's always clear. There's actually a lot of blue to it that you don't really see.
Yeah, a lot of dark, subtle blue.
Yeah. And I like that a lot. I think they make fantastic use of the wide frame. It's a full, 2.4 to 1 movie.
Yeah.
A lot of directors in America, because that's really an American framing. Most countries don't use that framing, and a lot of directors don't know how to use it. Especially, I think, in a horror movie, which doesn't always call for that. Really used well here. A lot of scenes where they're just using the frame to pull someone out of it or something. Yeah. Works really well in that way. The set design is fantastic. The cabin is such a character.
Yeah.
And it's a terrifying character.
Yeah, like you said, like once shit starts going down, and the evil force has like control over this basic area, this like and doors just start closing by themselves, and you're like, shit's going to go down because it's able to keep you in this room, and you're not getting out of that room until you've been fucked up. Something awful.
I really do think from a technical aspect, this movie is nigh flawless.
Yeah,
and the editing is great. One of the things I wanted to touch on, and I'm glad we kept going, because I think the musical score by a composer named Roque Baños, one of the best scores I've heard in several years for like just a movie that's not sort of a bigger sort of production, I guess you would say, like, I don't know. But anyway, it's really good. Definitely the best score I've heard this year. And it's great. I mean, the music in this movie, early on I noticed it when we're just setting up the characters, because it's actually legitimately kind of beautiful while it's setting up the characters. Very minimalistic, piano-based, but it nails the horror stuff, the stings on jump cuts and jump scares. Beautifully does that great. It's legitimately scary in parts. And then when we get to the end, and the emotions come back, it's just as good, and this score has to do so many things, and it does all of them really, really well. And I think the movie for me would not work as well if we didn't have the score there, especially in the ending, because the score is what indicates to me that we're wrapping up, aren't we? But no, we aren't. Yeah. And then it starts to, because it becomes so, I think, in a way, reflexive, self-aware. It's like we're not wrapping up because the score is just too happy, isn't it? And so I think it does a really good job with that.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice that it's not some sort of like stock horror like soundtrack that most horror movies nowadays have. Like, you could just like take any horror soundtrack from most movies, just like swap them around, and you wouldn't notice.
Yeah, so really damn good. I think remakes take a lot of shit because most of the time they're not done for creative reasons.
Yeah,
but Evil Dead is definitely an example where there was never any reason not to do a remake if you had the right skill set.
Yeah.
Because it's a story that's wide open. I mean, Evil Dead 2 is essentially a remake of Evil Dead 1.
Yeah, like it's all just like evolved around like, Deadeye's at the cabin. Like it's that same situation.
Yeah.
So
and obviously, and as I think you told me before the movie, because you've seen all of them, that this is not so much a remake as a new film with the same premise.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's they're not. It's not like I watched the Nightmare on Elm Street remake a while ago, and it's like that they were just like replicating scenes. Like they did like the thing with the bed and like the girl in the bathtub. Like the famous kills from the movie are there. And here it's like, well, I'm not as familiar with the Evil Dead because I haven't watched it a lot, but it's like, I never felt like they're just copying scenes. Like, that never happened. Like, there was never a moment where it's like, this is just that moment from that other movie. It's like, there are definitely callbacks, but, like that callback with, like, the chainsaw, that's, like, a sort of a callback to Evil Dead 2, but it's in a completely different way. Like, they're not doing that scene from Evil Dead 2. Yeah. They're not doing someone puts, like, a fucking chainsaw on their arm. Yeah, this is a remake that's, like, in the best sense of the word. It's like, this is what it should be. They're taking the premise, they're doing something new with it. The people from the original are still involved in a creative sense, but they're handing off like the real keys to a new like director and to new actors and like doing something different with it, but keeping the same spirit of the original.
Yeah, and I even I read about the history of it, and it was Fede Alvarez just came to work with the production company that owns Evil Dead. And he pitched this, and they brought Sam Raimi in and said, "You like this idea?" And he said, "This guy gets it.
Yeah.
Why don't we just let him do it?" And I think that's what a remake needs to be: someone with a clear vision for the story, and really, really good. So
yeah,
we're happy to talk about this. I like that this is our first full movie discussion of 2013.
Yeah,
because we'll be doing a lot of these this year. There just haven't been any great movies yet this year. Who knows? Maybe Iron Man 3 will be this violent. Wouldn't that be great? Tony Stark.
Where Tony Stark cuts his tongue in half with a fucking box cutter.
I was going to say he takes a chainsaw to Ben Kingsley. All right, that would be great. That will sadly not happen.
Yeah.
All right, but who knows? Man of Steel, we've seen so little footage from that, we have no idea.
It's just like the entire last 30 minutes of the movie are just Superman completely brutalizing Zod in like the most horrific ways possible. Just like cuts off his arm with like his heat vision and shit.
Eviscerates him eventually. Yeah. All right.
Punches through his face.
Okay, well, that's Evil Dead. Come back in now if you did not see the movie, didn't want to do our spoiler discussion, because we're jumping into another spoiler discussion. We are talking about Doctor Who, Series 7 point something. It's episode...
Series 7B is how I've seen people referring to it.
Yeah, I don't know what episode this is overall. I'm thinking of it as episode 3, because fuck it, that's what it is. I think that's 9 overall, but it's 3 effectively. And this is Cold War by Mark Gatiss. And it takes place on a submarine. We got the Ice Warriors back. Sean, what did you think of Cold War? But to set the stage, we very much liked the last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
This is the 3rd one. What did you think?
I thought it was okay. Like, definitely out of those last 3, this was the weakest. I didn't think it was absolutely terrible, but it was also like, I kind of just forgot about it after I watched it. But at the very least, it felt like an episode of Doctor Who to me. Like, there wasn't like I didn't get really angry at anything while watching it or something like that. It was just like, sort of just like this one and done. Okay, and then I did other stuff.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty flat. I really can't say I liked it. It was not bad. I'll give you that. Not an awful episode or anything. None of it really popped for me. There are some things I liked, but I started thinking about it after the episode. This is Mark Gatiss, who frequently has written for the show. He's also the co-showrunner on Sherlock with Stephen Moffat. And I looked back because I looked at the list, and I've got the list up here of all the episodes Mark Gatiss has directed. I've never liked them. I don't think he's a good Doctor Who writer, and I just nothing he's ever written for the show has popped for me. I'm just looking through the ones he's written. The Unquiet Dead was the 3rd episode of the series revived. That's the one with Charles Dickens and the ghosts. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's not great. It's kind of a rough early finding the show episode. The season 2 one, The Idiot's Lantern, with all the TVs taking people's souls.
Yeah, that one's kind of...
That's one's rough. I don't like that one. He didn't come back until Victory of the Daleks. That's my favorite one he's written, but that's still the weakest of Series 5.
Okay, yeah, that's the Matt Smith Dalek one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
there's so many
World War
of
III,
the Daleks that it's like, it's so hard to keep track of all those.
Victory of the Daleks is the one with, World War II and
the M&M Daleks that they're like, we're not going to do that design anymore because that looked terrible.
And the reasons I like that episode are because we had just gotten Matt Smith and Karen Gillan, and it was fun to see more of them. And
Winston Churchill was awesome in that episode,
but none of that has anything to do with the script. So. And now we're getting into this. In Series 6, he wrote the Night Terrors episode, which was my least favorite episode of that season. I know you like that one more. That's what.
That's the one with like the little kid. Yeah, this one's not like a good episode or like a great episode, but that's okay. I've honestly like all of those episodes you listen, I feel the exact same way about those that I feel about this one. It's like,
and that's my point. Yeah. With Cold War,
like none of them are phenomenal episodes in any way.
And I think it solidified for me here. In Cold War, and he's got another one coming up this season called The Crimson Horror, so we'll see more Mark Gatiss. Maybe he'll finally get his shit together, but what clarified it for me here is that I just don't think I don't think he can write characters that pop. Like, for instance, we have Liam Cunningham playing the captain of the ship, Captain Zukrov. And that actor, if you don't know, he's from Game of Thrones, is where a lot of people know him from. He's Davos on that show. He's really good. He's a really good actor. He's good here, but there's no character. He's just a ship captain. There's absolutely no character. And no one else has a character. And the Ice Warrior himself, I thought they could have gone so much further with because there were some interesting ideas there. So really the only characters we're left with who are characters are the Doctor and Clara, and they're complete blanks in this episode. There is nothing distinguishing about this as the 11th Doctor, this as, I think, an interesting incarnation of the Doctor, this as Clara even, I think mostly beyond the fact that she's still learning the ropes, this could be any companion.
Yeah.
This could be anyone. And I think, I look back at the list of episodes, and that's Mark Gatiss in a nutshell for Doctor Who. And with Cold War, and the stories are always the same way where they're racing against the clock for something bad is going to happen, but not all that interesting. The setting is never fully utilized, I don't think, even though they're usually interesting concepts like a nuclear submarine. I like that, and obviously this episode is very well directed, good production design, but for the most part, I just thought it's the same thing I have with all the scripts where I think the people who do good work do the good work they always do. Matt Smith is great, Jen Louise Coleman is great, but I think they've got pretty much nothing to work with, and I don't know why he keeps getting to write for Doctor Who, because I don't think anyone is very fond of his episodes.
Yeah, like the response to this online that I've seen is also very lukewarm.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a lot of people who really like this episode that much. But
yeah, and I'll say the thing I liked. There was one thing I thought about that was clever, and I liked is that I liked that the climax was not them fighting the Ice Warrior, but talking him down. I thought that worked, and I thought the dialogue was relatively decent there, of them talking about mercy and sort of these ideas, and the Doctor. I liked that this was one of these things where they bring the monster back from the original series, but the Doctor clearly has history, and they're not hiding from that.
Yeah.
I like it when they do that. I thought all that was handled fairly well, and I did like that the episode did not have the conventional climax where they have to fight him. It's just they talk him down. That worked.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of clunky things, particularly getting the TARDIS out of the hour was a fucking mess, and it never made sense quite what was going on. And How is that?
Although I don't know when, but I'm pretty sure the TARDIS has done this before, and I'm not sure if it's been in the revived series, but the TARDIS has definitely, like, there's a thing in the TARDIS that, like, sometimes when there's, like, immediate danger around the TARDIS, it will displace itself in time.
It has happened.
Like, that definitely happens before.
It has happened in the revived series. I'm just saying the way they handled it here I thought felt clunky, especially because at the end it's like, well, the Doctor and Clara are going to have a good year in this time period together.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, realistically, I'm pretty sure the Doctor would be able to get the TARDIS to come to where he is with the sonic screwdriver if it's on the same planet, but... Yeah.
I don't know. Just the dialogue there, like it was like something like at the end, like someone in the script revision stages said, you forgot to tie this up.
Yeah.
And
my favorite part of that whole sequence at the end is that, like, they did the thing where it's like, oh, where's the TARDIS? It's at the pole. It's like, oh, okay, the South Pole. And then it's like, can you give us a lift? And the captain just starts laughing. I'm like, dude, like 5 of your crewmen got brutally murdered by a Martian, right? Like, you shouldn't be so goddamn happy right now. Also, all of you should have died because you went from, like, 700 meters below the sea to the top in, like, 5 seconds. This movie has, like, this episode has such a terrible understanding of submarines. Like, I know almost nothing about submarines, and I know it's like, why the fuck did this submarine pick up what they thought was, like, a mammoth-like fossil? Like, what? It's a fucking military submarine! Like, what are they doing?
Okay, here's the stupidest part, was where... This is the dumbest thing I think I've ever seen anyone do on Doctor Who is at the end of the pre-credits sequence, just Johnny Jackass goes into the room and is like, I'm going to melt you now!
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, it's like,
what the fuck?
There is no good... Because, like, the guy has this line that's like, the professor said we shouldn't do this, but... I forget what he says. He says something stupid, and then he, like, melts.
It's a pot on burning.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah, he just says something really dumb. You never get a good... There's never a reason for why they they melted the Ice Warrior out of the ice. Also, never an explanation who the fuck looked at that when they actually had it in the submarine and thought that was a mammoth.
Yeah.
Because that was clearly bipedal. Like, they should have assumed... That's a big fucking, like, gorilla or human or something in there.
Yeah, why does a Soviet nuclear sub have a...
why does it have, like, this, like, biology professor? Like, why are they picking up samples? Like, it's the Cold War. You're the fucking submarine. Submarines don't do that. You're a military vessel. What the fuck are you doing?
It's height of the Cold War, 1980s, near the end. They're especially they're not fucking around then.
Yeah.
There was just some, and then I also thought,
there was the whole thing where, like, they were really worried that they were going to launch the nuclear missile when they were, like, way deep down, like, so close that they almost, like, were, like, imploded because they have all the ocean pressure. There's no fucking way that nuclear missile was going to launch when they were, like, that far down. Like, that was just, like, something where it's like, that's not going to work. But like, getting taken up, you should be really fucking worried now because now you can launch the nuclear missiles.
Yeah, and I think this, to me, is what a Mark Gatiss episode often is. He's got all these ideas and no clear sense of how to execute them. So, the thing where you mentioned they would have been fucking killed if they were brought up that fast. Yeah. That whole thing pissed me off because it was nothing but a Deus Ex Machina because throughout the whole episode they had this thing where they're on the cliff face and they're going to fall off, the pressure's going to kill them. Yeah. Well, he apparently had no intention of ever resolving that because there's just a magical wizard comes in and pulls you up, Yeah. Which is the essence of that. That kind of just annoyed me. A lot of stuff like that. Obviously they wanted to get the Ice Warrior out. They had no way to do it, so, Johnny Jackass and his lighter. Apparently he was going to melt this thing with a fucking lighter, if I remember correctly, the scene.
No, I think it was he had like a blowtorch or something.
He did? Okay, yeah. I'm thinking of Evil Dead. Still.
Yeah. Yeah,
and I thought it was.
That would have been really fucking funny if you went up to it with like a pocket lighter and just like this giant, massive block of ice and just like slowly started trying to melt it. I'm gonna get you out of here by the time the Cold War is over. I swear.
I thought it was weird when Clara went up to the Ice Warrior at the end with the chainsaw and just fucking
feast on this motherfucker. When the fucking Doctor got his hand torn apart by a crowbar, that was brutal.
Yeah. And okay, being serious, I also thought talking about, Mark Gatiss not having a handle on these characters, what was he trying to say about the Doctor and Clara's relationship in this episode? Because I had no sense of that, because at one point they're talking, this was the weirdest scene to me, where they're like, the Doctor's like, well, one of us has to go in and talk to him. Yeah. And he's like, I should do it. And they're like, you can't do this, Doctor, we need you. And then they go back and forth, and it's like, I don't know why the Doctor doesn't just walk the fuck in there. He can do that. And then Clara's like, I'll do it, and the Doctor's like proud of her, and then he like tries to play it off. Clara is the girl who has died twice, and he is desperately trying to keep her alive. He would not let her do that. He just would. That makes no sense. B, at one point, does he ever act like that around his companions, where he's like, "Yep, go into mortal peril. I'm with you." That's just not a thing the Doctor's done in the last 7 years of this show.
Yeah. And that's certainly not something this incarnation of the Doctor would ever do.
No,
I agree.
And that made no sense. The entire scene where she goes in and has the headphones on, I thought was a fucking mess, and I thought it was a good idea initially. I was looking forward to it, but she's important for all of 10 seconds. Then somehow the Ice Warrior can hear the Doctor over it, and then it accomplishes nothing, and then she's all neurotic about it through the episode. It's just nothing that happened felt specific.
Yeah, particularly all the writing for Clara felt really weird. It felt like Jenna Louise Coleman just she's a really good actress, but she had no idea what to do with her scenes because they were just especially there was the scene where she's talking with the professor before the Ice Warrior grabs his head or whatever. And it's that scene just felt really awkward and felt like Jenna Louise Coleman was trying to do something interesting with playing Clara off as being really scared, but it was just this feels really weird. The professor feels like he's some sort of pervert or something. I don't know what's going on.
It's honestly a scene I could kind of see with maybe an early Amy Pond, maybe with an early Rose. Not with this Clara.
Yeah.
I couldn't see with that, and even with those other characters, it wouldn't work 100%. It's just, it doesn't feel specific, and I think it's a very well-produced episode, very well acted, but you can see through it at every turn, because I just think the writing is not even, I don't even think it's halfway there. I really do think this is a pretty rough Doctor Who script. Rough to bad. I don't think this is a good script in any sense of the word.
I don't think it's a good script, but again, I think while I do have a lot of problems with it, when I was done with the episode, I was just I said, I forgot about half this fucking shit.
Yeah.
Talking with you, I keep on remembering, that stuff did happen in the episode.
Yeah. And, it's just, I guess for me, again, I think it is elevated because, as always, people who do good work on Doctor Who always do good work on Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And that includes the directors and, set designers and everyone else, too, not just the actors. It's a very good-looking episode.
Yeah.
But I think the script's a mess, and I'm not particularly looking forward to the prospect of us having another Mark Gatiss episode this season, because not a lot of episodes here. You just got the 8 in this chunk.
Yeah.
And if 2 of them are going to be this flat, that will be a disappointment. We can add it to the pile at this point.
It definitely is. But, there's no Doctor Who pun. They never, did that.
Okay, yeah. Props, yeah.
That did not happen in this episode.
I don't think Mark Gatiss has ever done an episode with a Doctor Who pun. So kudos to him.
So there we go. That's... Yeah. I mean, doesn't that just make him a better writer than Stephen Moffat at this point? Isn't that just kind of the rule?
No, but, because for most of his tenure on Doctor Who, Stephen Moffat has not been doing that. But
most of his tenure is kind of shifting the other way now for the 10 years part. It's sort of near the end of season 6 it started getting like that. Yeah. And then now all of season 7, all of his episodes do that. So.
Well, but he's been with the show since season 1.
But doing one-off episodes here and there.
Yeah,
so,
that's
true. What I'm saying. For his tenure, it's getting to this point where with Stephen Moffat, there's almost more bad than good for me. It's definitely turning in that direction.
He still gave us Blink.
But Blink's a good episode, but Blink is... People, way oversell Blink as, this is the greatest episode of Doctor Who ever made.
But we've got that.
Good episode.
I think the two-parter in Season 1 is
his two-parter in Season 1 I really, really like.
Girl in the Fireplace is one of my favorites.
That's a good episode.
Silence in the Library is great. Everything he wrote in Season 5, most of what he wrote in Season 6 until that awful, awful finale.
No, but halfway through Series 6, though. That's where his episodes...
Finale of Series 6, because Let's Kill Hitler is very good.
Other than it's called Let's Kill Hitler.
Okay, yeah. But
and he did make that decision.
Yes, but I think that's a very good episode. And then, yes, I don't think he has written a great episode since then, and that's too bad. But we'll see.
So that's a season and a half of not good episodes, and
showrunner. You're saying not good.
Season and a half.
I really did like the premiere of this 7B. I really did like that one. I thought that was a step in the right direction for him. It had an awful Doctor Who pun. I just
had 3
in a row. Yes,
3 in a row.
Yeah,
and he had the Doctor do it. He had the Doctor urging it on. That's pretty horrendous.
Yes, but anyway,
we're getting a little away from this episode
because there's practically nothing to talk about with it.
I mean, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I like that they brought back the Ice Warrior. I thought it was a weird but kind of interesting decision to have him come out of his armor And apparently, when they're out of their armor, they're completely fucking different because they're like little, like, you know, basically xenomorphs. Like half this episode was basically just ripping off Alien, and then they made the weirdest, because I appreciated at least that they, for most of that section, they didn't show him because I knew it would look awful. And then when they like have him like in the armor and they like have his CGI face look fucking terrible. I was like, why did you went through such lengths to not show me your terrible CGI? Then why like stick like this long 5-minute section at the end where all I'm seeing is your terrible fucking CGI?
Yeah.
They should go watch Evil Dead. Like fucking practical effects. Like even if you don't have the budget to do it, still looks better than CGI if you don't have the budget to do it.
Yeah, well, I actually think practical effects are often cheaper than even shitty CGI.
Oh, yeah.
So, and Doctor Who, I mean, they built the fucking costume. That wasn't easy, I'm sure. But, you know, I thought that design was good. I mean,
it was basically, they didn't change the design of, like, that outfit at all from the original. Which, you know.
When did they originally pop up? What Doctor era?
The second Doctor, I think. Yeah, they're... Because the first episode I saw with them was a second Doctor episode, but I don't know.
Is it surviving?
I think their first episode that they were actually in is not around, but there's another one from his last season, called like Seeds of Doom or something like that, or Seeds of Death. There's an episode called there's a serial called Seeds of Doom, and there's also a serial called Seeds of Death. I always get those two mixed up.
Okay.
Yeah, but they were. I think they would stop being around by the time the fourth Doctor was around, because they were in some third Doctor episodes. But
so they reached pretty far back for this.
Yeah, they're you know, most Doctor Who villains are not recurring in any capacity, and this is one of the few that are, that they like. Yeah, okay, we'll bring them back.
Okay,
sort of like, you know, they'll probably have as many appearances as the Silurians did.
Okay. All right, so who knows? Maybe we will eventually have a lesbian ice warrior in 1800 Victorian England.
But now, see, this completely fucks, like, you know, continuity with Doctor's fucked anyways, but specifically, they've usually been pretty good about the revived series. This completely fucks Water of Mars, that 10th Doctor special, because they make a slight reference to the Ice Warriors in that one, but now it's like, well, the Ice Warriors are around, and clearly they're somewhere in this solar system. Like, where are they? Like, why were they not on Mars somewhere? Like, what's the...
We were on, like, one small part of Mars for that episode. They could have been on the other side of the planet.
Yeah, but they're a fucking, like, intergalactic civilization. I think they'd be pretty fucking aware of humans landing on the goddamn planet, and they wouldn't be happy about it. That's all I'm saying.
Fair enough, yes.
You know, again, continuity in Doctor Who's completely fucked, but I just think it's funny how they kind of just, like, tried to step around the fact that Martians were an actual, like, alien in classic Doctor Who when they did Water of Mars, and they didn't try to address it that much. But now that they brought them back, it's like, if you go back and watch Water of Mars, it's like, well, this doesn't make any goddamn sense anymore.
Yep. Water of Mars, better episode than this.
Yeah, it's
a great episode.
Yeah. It's also, you know, like, that's another episode that's going for a more horror theme like this one did. Pulled that off a lot better than that episode. Like,
that's the other thing about Cold War that I just thought. I thought this one was mostly just fucking boring because...
Yeah, because it was trying to go for a suspense kind of thing and mostly didn't nail it. Yeah.
No.
It was... Yeah, again, it was trying to basically rip off Alien, having an alien on now a submarine instead of a spaceship, but yeah.
Yeah, so... Oh well.
Yeah, mostly, yeah, a lackluster episode. I didn't, like, completely despise it. There's one thing from this episode that after, like, you know, I don't know why I do this to myself anymore, but I'd like to see what other, like, Doctor Who fans are thinking. I don't know a lot of other people who watch Doctor Who in my life other than you, so I have to go online to do it, and I fucking hate Doctor Who fans. Because after I watched this episode, I went online and literally, if you go onto the Doctor Who subreddit on reddit.com, like, half of the fucking posts after the episode were gone were, like, theories about, Hungry Like a Wolf, the Duran Duran song. Everybody was
serious?
Yeah, everyone was like, this is some sort of, like, grand scheme of, like, reintroducing Rose because of the stupid fucking Bad Wolf shit. The worst part of the overarching plot from Season 1. I hated Bad Wolf, makes no fucking sense, the dumbest thing from Season 1. And then, like, just because the word wolf is mentioned. I mean, it's like, that is like, it's Hungry Like a Wolf. That is like the Duran Duran song. It's like, it's a complete fucking coincidence. In no way did Mark Adams was like, I need to make some sort of dumb Rose reference, so to do that, I'm going to pick the most, like, famous Duran Duran song, the Duran Duran song that, like, everybody has heard, even if you don't know you've heard it. Go list, like, because I wasn't that particularly, like, I thought I had heard it, but I was like, Hungry Like a Wolf, that sounds familiar. Then I went on YouTube and listened to the song. I'm like, oh, it's this song. Everybody's heard this song.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to pick
I like
the
that
song
song.
from 1982, yeah, Hungry Like a Wolf. Duh.
Yeah.
I just thought it was
And
so
you know
funny
what?
that everyone's like trying to, it's a Bad Wolf Rose thing. It's like, fuck you, no, it's not. It's a complete fucking coincidence. And even if it is, so what? And then people will say it's like, there are no coincidences in Doctor Who. It's like, what fucking show are you watching? You maniacs! Doctor Who has never, they're treating it like it's fucking Lost. It's never been like Lost. It's not some sort of what do the numbers mean? It's never been like that.
Lost was not like that. It was
but there was this
yeah.
perception of Lost kind of being like that. Of for people being every single little detail is completely significant. It's like, the only thing that has ever been like that for a Doctor Who is in the Revive series where Russell T Davies would, with the Bad Wolf shit, do this dumb thing of having an arc word throughout a season of Bad Wolf will just appear. But that wasn't subtle. It was in your face. Bad Wolf is all over the place, and then it doesn't make any sense once it's explained. He's like, why is it Bad Wolf? Rose.
Sends it physically back in time.
But why Bad Wolf? What is the significance of those two words? There is no significance to those two words.
And to his credit, that is not something Stephen Moffat does.
Yeah.
When he does arcs, they are more significant, even if it's something we don't like the Doctor Who.
But also Stephen, indeed people treat Stephen Moffat like this too, of he's some sort of mad genius that weaves subtle details into every fucking fiber of every single episode, even episodes he hasn't written,
which are most of them.
Yeah, it's no, it's never been like that. It's Series 6 should have proved, it ended up with the Tessellate, the most obvious, in-your-face, duh answer. River Song is the daughter of Amy Pond. Not that that's a terrible twist, but that's not a complete, that's the most predictable twist you could have done in that situation. It's not this crazy, oh, holy shit thing.
Yeah, it would be it would be like saying, going back and retroactively saying, Amy being ginger was a deliberate choice because she would become a ganger at one point.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you replace I with A, it's the same word.
Yeah, exactly. That is the exact shit these people pull out. And then they also did one where it's one of my actual favorite parts of this episode was near the beginning, where the Doctor gets captured, as, the Doctor always gets fucking captured.
I like that general plot.
Yeah, then he, but they're, taking all the shit out of his pockets, and it's, a running joke in Doctor Who that they don't really do anymore, and that the Doctor just carries, tons of shit around with him, and so it's whenever he has to, the best one is from Genesis of the Daleks with the Fourth Doctor, where he's just, piling tons of shit out of his pockets. It's they do that, and one of the things is a Barbie doll. And I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. Then people went online and they're like, that Barbie doll is supposed to be, signifies Rose. It's what? No! It's a fucking Barbie doll! It's supposed to be funny because they're what is the significance of the Barbie doll? The significance of it is that there is no significance. There's no reason the Doctor should be carrying around a Barbie doll. That's why it's kind of funny that he would just have that on him, and he seems to care about it a lot because he gets it back. That Barbie doll joke was the best part of the entire episode, and I'm not even joking when I say that. That was literally the best part of the whole episode. And then I go online, and everybody ruins it for me by trying to overanalyze it and being dumb.
And here's the thing: if they really did want to foreshadow Rose stuff after all this time of her being away, I can tell you right now, Stephen Moffat is not subtle in that way. He would have the Doctor mention her or something.
It would be a lot more
this is the same,
in your face. It would be a reference that would have some meat to it, not this this Duran Duran song that has the word wolf in it. That's that ties into Bad Wolf bullshit.
And I mean, that's the thing is that it's the same character. If he wanted to talk about Rose, he could. He had that experience, and he regenerated and got to his senses and stopped thinking about her. But
man, that was a weird time in my life. I got really weirdly attached to this 19-year-old British London chick.
I'm gonna repress that.
Yeah. Oh Jesus.
Anyway, but yeah, so that is the worst fan theory I think I have ever heard for anything.
They're all over the place, but that was one of the worst. It's just
Jesus.
Come on. It is such an obvious, massive coincidence. You don't have to pull all this shit out from it.
Yeah. Okay, here's an example. Last week, Doctor references he has a granddaughter. Read into that.
Yeah, exactly. I mentioned, on that episode, I was hoping that, maybe, Stephen Moffat said, we need to, mention that, because it's that would be a kind of thing with the 50th anniversary coming up. You keep you keep that in people's minds. You don't make some sort of like crazy they meet a guy in the episode who's a foreman because that was Susan's fake last name in the original fucking Unearthly Child was Susan Foreman. Like, no, they're not going to do that because nobody's going to get that reference. Like that would be just so dumb and completely pointless. Exactly, they would mention you'd mention Rose in passing to sort of so people can kind of remember Rose and so it's kind of in your head, so it doesn't feel like it comes out of nowhere when the 50th anniversary special comes around and Rose is in it. I hate Doctor Who fans. It's it drives me insane. But it's I have to know what other Doctor Who fans are thinking because it's I want to know the general opinion. I want to know what that fandom and atmosphere is like, even though I hate it and want to tear it to pieces and just slap those people in the face because they fucking there were people who were saying they liked this episode more than Rings of Akaton. Just
oh, God.
You've got to be kidding me. I can kind of understand why you might not have loved Rings of Akaton as an episode, but it's a lot fucking better than this one.
Yeah.
It's a lot fucking better than this one.
Yeah, so flat episode overall.
Yeah.
But, again, I will say the one thing that I think had in its favor, even though Clara was poorly written, having her there does make this better than it would be if this was the 30th appearance by Amy Pond.
Yeah, exactly.
There just is a fresh perspective, and I think it proves that how valuable it is having this new companion on board finally, because there is a different dynamic, and I like that dynamic a lot.
Yeah, and it's nice just to have, even though it's not a great episode, there's no bullshit in this episode. It's just a fucking episode. It's I like that. I like that it's just an episode of Doctor Who. I hope it's that seems really promising for the rest of the season. That it seems until probably near the very end, most of these episodes are just going to be episodes of Doctor Who, and I like that idea.
And next week's I'm excited for a lot because it's written by Neil Cross, who did Rings of Akaton.
Yeah, and it's got a cool ghost thing. That preview was pretty awesome at the end of this episode. So.
Yeah. And it sounded like that will actually be doing some stuff with Clara and this idea. And, I think so far I am getting much more of, from this set of episodes, Series 7B, kind of a Series 5 vibe, where we're getting just stories every week, and there are things being seeded, and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
So we're only 3 in. There's only 8 overall.
Yeah.
But,
and it's just weird because they don't have, they don't have a whole series to try to develop the smaller plot threads. But hopefully, that works out. Hopefully the Clara stuff is interesting and never becomes overbearing.
Right. Yeah. So, and I just, again, overall hopes for the season. I hope Stephen Moffat gets his Doctor Who puns out of his system this season somehow.
Yeah.
It pays off in a way that is not completely annoying, and then we can just go from there and he can be a good writer again.
Yeah.
100%. Not 90% a good writer, just being a good writer again.
It's I just really hope we get to some point with Stephen Moffat where he's you know what? What am I just going to ignore, the silence? I'm just going to ignore the question. I'm going to ignore the explosion of the TARDIS in Series 5. I'm not going to try to resolve those because he's not doing a goddamn thing to try to resolve them, but, a little bits come up every now and then that's just, remind you that they exist, and it's if you just drop all that shit and just be no, we're going to do something new now, I'd be a lot more happy. That's what Doctor Who's about. Just, when it becomes too overbearing, just be nope! Something new. Just something new.
Or if he could, I would just love to see him, and I think actually the premiere of this set of episodes came close for me. Just write an episode. That's kind of what I think we've been missing this season for Steve. Well, actually for a while with Stephen Moffat, because he really last time he got to do this was the 2-part River Song episode in Series 5. But just him getting to just write an episode of Doctor Who, because now all he does is the premieres and finales, and because they've had 7 premieres and finales every year now, he's not getting to write just episodes, and that's too bad. Because I think that's where he's best. Mm-hmm. So, in any case. We are so far off topic from Cold War, and I think that says something about Cold War.
Yeah, that's, that was something where we were joking, because we were trying to figure out what to do for this podcast, because we weren't quite sure, because you hadn't seen Evil Dead yet, and so we feel you asked me, is that Doctor Who episode enough to really have a media discussion about? No. Yeah. Because, there's nothing not that much to talk about with this one.
But, hey, at least I'm so glad I went to see Evil Dead for this podcast, because
that's fucking great. Yeah.
Yep. I'd even say it's groovy.
Yes, it's groovy.